Chapter 1077. Such a thing should never happen. The sword spirit comforted him. Now that you have successfully cleared your suspicion of the Tribulation Sword Master, and the appearance of the Tribulation Sword Master is imminent, why would they waste so much effort on a sudden rise of power? Even if they could really do it, have you thought of the price they would have to pay? At least 700 supreme martial artists would die if they sent out 1,000. The sword spirit said, in this way, it would be equivalent to wiping out all the elites of the heavenly layer. Who could afford such a loss? If the Tribulation Sword Master were to attack at this time, would the big clans be at his mercy? Chu Yang frowned and said, but I have a feeling that this is highly likely to happen. The sword spirit snorted. The sense of crisis in Chu Yang's heart grew stronger and stronger. He had first mentioned this to Zi Sheqing, but Zi Sheqing only smiled disdainfully. Before he could say anything to Bu Luqing pointed at the door and said, get out. When he mentioned it to the Moon Breeze couple, they smiled reservedly, listened to him politely, and then sent him out politely. Now that he mentioned it to the sword spirit was still quoting the facts and reasoning, telling him that such a thing would never happen. Such a unanimous response still couldn't dispel Chu Yang's sense of crisis. Instead, because of their reactions, Chu Yang became more and more worried. His heart felt more and more oppressed. The more Zi Sheqing, Bu Luqing and the rest didn't care, the more Chu Yang felt threatened. But he couldn't change the minds of these four people. There was nothing he could do. Chu Yang had a lot on his mind. Zi Sheqing and the rest were different from Mo Tianji and Gu Duxing. If it were those few people, as long as Chu Yang mentioned it, even if it was impossible, Mo Tianji and the rest would do their best to guard against it. But these few people were all powerful people of the world. Every one of them was a figure that no one dared to challenge. After so many years, they had already cultivated a confidence that looked down on the world. Not to mention that there was no danger. Even if there was really great danger, not only would these people not avoid it, they would even throw themselves into it to try. This was the conceit and pride that belonged to the top experts. It had nothing to do with personality. However, the thing that Chu Yang was most afraid of and worried about right now was precisely their pride as a powerhouse. Seeing that even the sword spirit didn't agree with his point of view, Chu Yang had no choice but to end the conversation. He let out a long sigh and then called Mo Qingwu, Chu Lur, Wu Chanshan, Dong Wushang, Rui Badong and the others. There is one thing that I want to warn you about. During this period of time, don't go out if you can. Even if you want to go out, Qingwu, you must not be more than 30 meters away from your master. Chanshan, you too. You must never leave Big Sister Zi's side. Wushang, the three of you don't have to worry about this for the time being. But you have to be careful and try not to go out. Chu Yang instructed with a heavy face. This was the best solution he could come up with. There was no other way. Moreover, this was the only way to kill Zi Sheqing, Bu Luqing and Feng and Yu at the same time, after careful consideration by Chu Yang. Zi Sheqing and Bu Luqing would never retreat before rescuing Chu Le, Mo Qingwu and the others. They would make use of the special terrain, lay in ambush beforehand, use sneak attacks and various other methods to weaken their battle power. Finally, gather all the supreme martial artists of the heavens and besiege them. But as long as they didn't give them such a chance, even if they wanted to do so, they might not be able to do so. Chu Yang frowned and repeated this arrangement again with a heavy voice and a heavy face. The juniors all obeyed Chu Yang's instructions and agreed to it one after another. After the arrangements were made, Chu Yang was still a little worried. Diwu Qingrou's words were still echoing in his mind. The enemy's strength is far stronger than what you see. It was late at night and Chu Yang couldn't sleep. He put on his clothes and went to the flower rack, deep in thought. How strong exactly was the enemy's strength? A white shadow flashed and Zi Sheqing appeared. Are you still racking your brains over your wild thoughts? Zi Sheqing teased with a teasing smile. I'm definitely not wild imagination. Chu Yang said angrily, I'm worried for you. Do you know? Why do you always feel that there's no danger? Even if you're skilled and brave, this matter is really not a small matter. Zi Sheqing smiled faintly and sat down in front of him. Her beautiful eyes narrowed slightly as she said, back then when I was in another continent, the overlord of that continent had a favorite son. He took a fancy to me and used all kinds of tricks. In a fit of anger, I killed him. After that, the entire continent mobilized thousands of experts to besiege me. Everywhere I went, there was a massacre. Guess what happened in the end? Zi Sheqing winked at Chu Yang. What happened? Chu Yang asked weakly. Thousands of experts, none of them survived. The world's hegemony turned into dust. Zi Sheqing said lightly, there were at least 5 experts who were above the Dharma Supreme now. Chu Yang said weakly, but can the two worlds be compared? You were alone then, but now you have worries in your heart. The heavens are mysterious and unpredictable, the law enforcement officers are unfathomable, and the big clans have a strong foundation. What makes you think that these people can't kill you? If they can kill me, it's their ability. If I'm killed, I can die without regrets. Zi Shiqing said lightly. Suddenly, she turned her head and asked with a smile, "Are you so concerned about whether I'll be killed or not?" What? Chu Yang was not in the mood to discuss this at all. He said casually, "If you leave, I hope you leave safely. If you stay, I hope you stay safely. Whatever you want to do, I hope it's out of your own will. Even if you die, I hope it's a natural death." "I don't want you to die. It's that simple." Chu Yang said lightly, "There's no reason and no reason." Zi Shiqing looked at him deeply and a gentle smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She lowered her eyebrows and said, "I'll take note." Chu Yang sighed, "But you're clearly trying to comfort me. You don't care about those people at all. You're only worried about what will happen after you leave. But you've never considered what kind of danger you'll face while you're here. You're too arrogant." As Chu Yang spoke, his anger rushed up. He said angrily, "Why can't you listen to me? Woman, why are you so careless when it concerns your own safety?" Zi Shiqing smiled lightly and stood up. "I'm going to sleep." "Sleep my ass." Chu Yang was furious. "Can you listen to me?" Zi Shiqing did not answer. She turned and left. "Stop right there." Chu Yang was furious. But Zi Shiqing's figure had already disappeared. Bang. Chu Yang kicked the stone table in front of him and scolded angrily and powerlessly, "Bastard woman! What an unreasonable woman! Arrogant woman! Detestable woman! Detestable! Detestable!" He scolded angrily and vented his anger. However, Zi Shiqing did not come out to teach him a lesson. In the room, Zi Shiqing stood in front of the window, looking up at the gloomy and cold sky. Her eyes were filled with gentleness. Her eyes were clear and there was a smile on her face. She stood there quietly, listening to Chu Yang's angry scolding. Her whole body was filled with gentleness. Chu Yang lay down weakly. He knew that he could not convince these people about this matter. If he wanted to avoid future developments, he could only rely on his own efforts to resolve it, or rather, to save it. "But I don't have such great ability." Minister Chu was very upset. In the next few days, Chu Yang's demand for information increased. Nangong Shifeng and his brothers were also exhausted from running around. He spent his purple crystals and bought a bunch of information. What made Chu Yang depressed was that even this mysterious information purchasing place could not provide any information about the hidden forces of the big clans. As for Mo Qingwu, Chu Lur and Wu Qianqian, Chu Yang had also repeatedly reminded them over and over again these few days. Towards the end, even Wu Qianqian was a little surprised that Chu Yang was actually such a busybody. "Do you have to harp on and on about the same thing over and over again?" After another 5 days it was still peaceful. However, Chu Yang's mouth actually had a ring of blisters. The most powerless thing in the world is knowing that something bad is going to happen, but being unable to stop it. Chu Yang looked up at the sky and sighed. Of course, during this period Chu Yang did not forget to find out about Meng Qiaoran. Chu Yang had long known that Meng Qiaoran had also come to Tianji City. During this period he had also been paying attention to the movements of Yi Chuchen and Ling Hanwu. However, he did not find any clues. It was as if Meng Qiaoran was just a drop of water that had entered Tianji City and melted into the sea. As if there was no movement at all, Chu Yang's search was fruitless. He could not help but admire his master's superb concealment skills. In this world there were not many who could hide from his all-out investigation. Ever since the Dharma Supreme left, there was no movement. Zi Shiqing kept a close watch but did not notice the Dharma Supreme's return. On this day Chu Yang wrote a bunch of invitation cards. Dong Wuxiang personally went to deliver the invitation cards. Yi Xiu from the Yi clan, Ling Hanwu from the Ling clan, Xiao Sanxi from the Xiao clan, Meng Sei from the Jia clan, Zhuge Changchang from the Zhuge clan, Shi Yunping from the Shi clan, Chen Feitian from the Chen clan. These were the few clans that were still in existence in the great clans. They were also the rising stars of the great clans in Tianji City. Chu Yang's motive was very simple. First, he would chat with these people and interact with them in the long run. Once he discovered any abnormalities, he would first take control of all these people and play a hostage against a hostage. An eye for an eye. Although he knew that these people were far from enough, it was the most powerful counterattack that Chu Yang could come up with at the moment. When Dong Wuxiang returned, the news that he brought back made Chu Yang so angry that he smashed the stone table with his palm. No one was free. Every one of them was very polite, but every one of them was frighteningly busy. They said in unison, "After the medicine banquet, we will invite Brother Chu to have a good gathering." In short, they were not coming. Chapter 1078. The Diwu Clan. Diwu Qingru sat on a chair, facing a situation map in front of him, not saying a word. He had been studying this every day for the past few days, sitting in front of the table for the whole day. The heavenly secrets have been completely messed up. It's impossible to predict. Diwu Qingru sighed. He stared at the situation map in front of him, his brows deeply furrowed. After a long time he still sighed helplessly. It's unsolvable. He smiled bitterly. Chuyang must be having a splitting headache now. But the situation in front of us is truly unsolvable. Other than a violent breakthrough, there is no other way. This situation may seem simple, but it makes full use of the arrogance, conceit and fame of top experts. The strength of Chu Yang's side is strong or weak. Thinking of this, Diwu Qingru's eyes lit up. He muttered to himself, actually it's not unsolvable. Because there is still a huge variable that hasn't appeared here on this heavenly continent. That is Ning Tianya. If he goes, once it starts and Ning Tianya rushes over, this situation can be resolved. But, will they consider Ning Tianya as a variable? Or, will Ning Tianya be able to make it in time? With such a great gathering, logically speaking, Ning Tianya will definitely rush over. The heavenly secrets are in chaos. Diwu Qingru sighed deeply, frowning as he sat back in his chair, frowning and deep in thought. If Chu Yang is defeated here, the great plan of the Diwu clan will go up in smoke. But at present, Chu Yang's side doesn't have any hope of victory. Unless that mysterious woman's cultivation has really reached a level that can destroy half of the continent, in a faraway place. This was a mysterious place, shrouded in clouds and fog all year round. The black figure of the Dharma Supreme fluttered, appearing indifferently from this patch of clouds and fog. Behind him there was a figure in the same black as ink. Fluttering, it was like a shadow of the Dharma Supreme, but the aura it exuded was even stronger than that of the Dharma Supreme, shocking everyone. Brother Wu, this place is not bad, right? The Dharma Supreme smiled lightly and said indifferently. It's okay. In this place, using the formation to shield the secrets of the heavens can indeed prevent the heavenly punishment. The shadow said faintly, when the heavenly punishment passes through here, it is weakened by 70%. Brother Wu, it can be said that you've been tested time and time again under heavenly punishment. I have never experienced heavenly punishment before, I would really like to know what it feels like. The Dharma Supreme smiled faintly. If you don't want to leave this place now, you'd better not do that. The black-clothed figure's voice was slightly heavy as he said, once you survive the heavenly punishment, you must collapse the sky and shatter the void to enter that magical place. At that time, if you force yourself to stay, you will end up like me. However, you will have to endure heavenly lightning once every 100 years. The Dharma Supreme sighed and said, Brother Wu's perseverance really takes my breath away. It's not perseverance. It's just that I haven't gotten my revenge yet. That black-clothed figure floated in the fog, and his voice was filled with deep hatred. He said, I, Wu Jueqing, swear that I will not ascend to the heavens until the Calamity Sword Master is destroyed. Dharma Supreme, I'll help you this time. Next time, I'll only act against the Calamity Sword Master. I'm already very grateful that Brother Wu can help me with this. The Dharma Supreme chuckled. It's hard to find an opponent. This mysterious woman has indeed piqued my curiosity and battle intent. This mysterious person was naturally Wu Jueqing, the descendant of Qin Feng. Two pitch-black eyes shot out from the dense black fog. Wu Jueqing said solemnly, my ancestors once warned me that in this world, there's a woman that I must never provoke. It's very possible that the woman you met is that woman. He chuckled. But in this world, is there anyone that I can't provoke? Can't provoke? If I wanted to leave, I would have left 10,000 years ago. I have already transcended this plane long ago. Could it be that this woman was also left behind after enduring countless heavenly punishment? Can't provoke? Since she has appeared, how can I not provoke her? The Dharma Supreme was silent for a moment before he said indifferently, this world is really lonely. Wu Jueqing was also silent for a moment. After a long while, he sighed sadly. Yes, this world is really lonely. As they spoke, the two of them had already walked out of the fog. Standing in the bleak landscape of mountains and rivers, Li Changshu stood there. The moment the Dharma Supreme appeared, Countless pieces of mysterious information seemed to flow in from all directions and converge on him through a mysterious channel. A small round plate in front of his chest. The Dharma Supreme picked up the round plate and looked at it carefully. Smiling, he said, "Brother Wu, looks like we have something to do immediately." The black fog was dense. Wu Jueqing asked disinterestedly, "What is it?" "The variable is here." The Dharma Supreme smiled indifferently. "I've told Brother Wu before that there's only one variable that has the ability to interfere with our grand plan. That is Ning Tianya. Before the plan starts, Ning Tianya cannot be in Tianji City." He smiled lightly. Currently, Ning Tianya has already left the place where he gathered herbs and has also received news about Tianji City. Right now he's on his way. He turned back and looked at Wu Jueqing. "And the first thing we have to do is to kill or injure Ning Tianya. Let him die. At the very least, we have to prevent him from reaching Tianji City." "Ning Tianya?" Wu Jueqing smiled slightly. "That person who has been occupying the so-called #1 expert in the world for a long time? That's fine too. Let me use this person as a warm-up first." The Dharma Supreme smiled indifferently. "From here on out, we should be able to block Ning Tianya for about 2,000 miles towards the north. Now that I think about it, Ning Tianya's expression must be very interesting when he suddenly sees the two of us blocking his way." The Dharma Supreme smiled lightly. Two people who should have disappeared for tens of thousands of years suddenly meeting Ning Tianya. This #1 expert in the world is indeed impressive. Wu Jueqing smiled and said, "Then what are we waiting for?" Laughing loudly, the two black-clothed figures disappeared without a trace. In another direction, Ning Tianya was speeding all the way. As he walked, he was cursing Buluqing in his mind. The few missions that this bastard gave him were simply torturous. Walking one round in all directions. Now he had already obtained the purple aura vermilion fruit, the golden light lotus and 2 big bottles of purple whale blood essence. But he had not even touched the heavenly Tao tea and spirit comprehension grass. He was just about to set off to the Zhuge family to get their Tianyang purple Ganoderma when he heard that Buluqing and his disciple were now in Tianji City. This caused Ning Tianya to feel a little angry. What a bastard. He had brought his disciple out without a word. What if something happened to her? Tianji City was now filled with all kinds of people and experts. This Buluqing was really daring. Therefore, Ning Tianya continued to rush towards the south without stopping. Along the way he also noticed that people were constantly paying attention to him, but he did not take it to heart at all. The #1 expert in the world was renowned. Although he did not appear often, too many big clans had portraits of him. There were indeed many people who knew him. He was even more used to being noticed. So what if they noticed? Therefore, Supremacy Ning did not take it to heart. Traveling through the starry night, his speed was more than just fast. On this day, Ning Tianya rushed up a slope as fast as lightning. Instantly he felt that something was not right. It was as if there were 2 powerful auras waiting for him in front. He could not help but be startled. Where did these 2 unparalleled experts come from in such a desolate place? Is that Ning Tianya in front? An indifferent voice came from the opposite mountain in front. "I sincerely invite Brother Ning for a gathering, how about it?" Ning Tianya laughed and said, "So it is the Dharma Supreme." With a leap, he crossed a distance of several thousand feet with a swoosh. The next moment he had already arrived at the opposite mountain. He laughed and said, "Since the Dharma Supreme is waiting for me here, there must be something important." On the opposite side, a figure in black with his long hair hanging down loosely was standing quietly with his hands behind his back. Dressed in black, he was like a demon god in the dark night. "Brother Ning is indeed bold." The Dharma Supreme smiled. "I am here to spar with Brother Ning." Ning Tianya shook his head and laughed. Spar, but there is no need for an ambush. Dharma Supreme, that helper of yours, come out together." "It is not an ambush. Ning Tianya, the one who wants to spar with you this time is me." Without a sound, a figure in black appeared several hundred feet behind Ning Tianya. Wu Jueqing had appeared. "Who are you?" Ning Tianya's pupils shrank. At this moment he felt that the aura of this person opposite him was actually higher than his. How could such a person appear in the double heavens continent? "You should have heard of my name." Wu Jueqing's eyes were half closed. He said coldly, "I am Wu Jueqing. Poison Dr. Wu Jueqing?" Ning Tianya was extremely shocked. Tribulation, who had disappeared for tens of thousands of years, actually appeared in front of him now. Good knowledge. It has been tens of thousands of years, but the name Wu Jueqing has not disappeared from the world after all. Wu Jueqing's voice carried an inexplicable threat and inexplicable hatred. Back then, the name Poison Dr. Wu Jueqing had made a name for himself when he was Tribulation. Now, where was his old brother from back then? Wu Jueqing suddenly felt very bleak. Following these words, the black fog around Wu Jueqing's body slowly dissipated, revealing his original appearance. He was dressed in a long black robe, calm and composed, with a handsome face and a slender figure. He had the appearance of a handsome man. Ning Qinya heaved a long sigh. So it is Lord Wu. Lord Wu has disappeared for tens of thousands of years, but suddenly appeared today to look for me. May I know what advice Lord Wu has for me? Chapter 1079. Kill me? Ning Qinya chuckled. Lord Yuanliang Wu hasn't come out for tens of thousands of years, and the moment she came out, it was to kill me. Suddenly he thought of something. Frowning, he turned around and said, Lord Dharma Supreme must be planning to deal with my old brother? The Dharma Supreme said apologetically, Brother Ning, please forgive me. Your brother Bu Luqing is really a hindrance. Brother Ning's existence is also a variable that can affect the heavens. Therefore, for the sake of the great cause of the great heaven, Brother Ning and Brother Bu should go to the underworld to compete for the first place. Ning Qinya smiled indifferently. As long as Lord Dharma Supreme and Lord Wu have the capability, then it's no big deal for the two of us to go underground and compete for the #1 position in the world. Wu Jueqing said dispassionately, Brother Ning is indeed worthy of the title of #1 expert in the world. Are you so sure that I won't be able to kill you? Ning Qinya replied indifferently, if Lord Wu and Lord Dharma Supreme don't even care about face, then even if I don't want my life, it's nothing. Wu Jueqing smiled lightly. The next moment, Wu Jueqing took a step forward. The wind and clouds in the sky moved. The entire land seemed to be shrinking and disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye. There was only one point in front of him that was slowly enlarging. Wu Jueqing's fist. Ning Qinya smiled in a carefree manner and raised his hand to receive it. A saber suddenly appeared in his hand. It was a simple and unadorned saber that looked like a piece of wood. There wasn't even a flash of saber light on the blade. It just slashed out in a low-key manner. Ning Qinya had fought against enemies for over 10,000 years, but no one had ever seen his weapon. No one knew that Ning Tianye's weapon was actually a saber. Saber supremacy. With Bu Luqing it was a saber and a sword. Today Ning Tianye had finally revealed his trump card. Moreover, he had revealed his saber at the very beginning of the battle. It was evident that Ning Tianye did not dare to be careless in this battle. Brother Ning is indeed the saber supremacy. The Dharma Supreme's eyes flashed. Wu Jueqing's expression was like a 10,000-year-old sculpture, unmoving and unmoving. It was a direct punch and it didn't change direction at all. The mountains, rivers, and earth seemed to be condensed in this one punch and it struck out viciously. Bang! Ning Qinya's blade and Wu Jueqing's fist collided fiercely. The two of them froze at the same time. Then an inexplicable tremor suddenly spread out like water ripples. At the same time, two black holes of absolute vacuum appeared in the sky. With a cracking sound, the mountain beneath their feet suddenly split open from the middle. The crack was like a long snake that suddenly appeared, becoming wider and wider. It was unknown how deep it went. The two combatants actually maintained their original postures and didn't move at all. They were separated by thousands of feet by this deep and long canyon that suddenly split open. The entire mountain was separated neatly from the middle. They became two straight cliffs. The next moment, Ning Qinya let out a long howl and said coolly, 10,000-year tribulation. That's all you've got. Wu Jueqing said dispassionately, the #1 in the world is nothing more than this. The two of them raised their heads at the same time. 4 pairs of eyes stared at each other across the deep gorge. It was these 4 pairs of eyes that made the two of them feel that every change in their bodies, every change in their muscles, and every change in their auras could not be hidden from each other's eyes and senses. The battle of life and death only truly began when the two of them looked at each other. The saber and fist from before were just appetizers. Wu Jueqing let out a long howl. His black figure suddenly rose up into the sky thousands of feet high. With a wave of his hands, a formless dark cloud spread out between heaven and earth. Then, with a shake of his right hand, a black whip suddenly appeared. With a casual swing of his hand, the shadow of the whip was like the wind and the clouds surging, transforming into raging waves. The clouds in the sky were scattered by the whip. Wu Jueqing's left sleeve fluttered and turned into a patch of dark clouds. The whip in his right hand turned into a cloud mountain. Just like that, he stood proudly in the sky and shouted, Ning Qinya, come and accept your death. Ning Qinya let out a long laugh and said,
Not necessarily accepting my death, but breaking the legend of the tribulation is still quite interesting. Like an arrow leaving the bow, he shot towards Wu Jueqing in the sky. Their saber and whip tangled, gradually rising higher and higher. Gradually they actually rose above the clouds, not knowing how far they were or how high they were. The Dharma Supreme sat cross-legged on the mountaintop, a faint smile on his face. But beside him, there was a faint black fog circulating rapidly, making whooshing sounds. When the black fog passed, patches of black holes appeared and disappeared neatly. All the spiritual energy of heaven and earth between heaven and earth came roaring madly, pouring into the Dharma Supreme's body like a great river. He was channeling his energy to the limit. Ning Qinya was no match for Wu Jueqing. The Dharma Supreme had absolute confidence in this point. Ning Qinya also couldn't break free from Wu Jueqing's aura lock now. Therefore Ning Qinya could only fight. Only after an intense battle, by exchanging injury for injury and breaking free from Wu Jueqing's aura lock, would Ning Qinya be able to leave in an instant. And what the Dharma Supreme was waiting for now was precisely such an opportunity. As long as Ning Qinya was defeated and left, then the accumulated power now would give this number one expert in the world a heavy blow. This blow contained all of the Dharma Supreme's power and all of his potential. As long as this blow landed, even with Wu Jueqing's cultivation, he wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. Therefore Ning Qinya would die. At the very least, even if it didn't take his life, it was absolutely impossible for Ning Qinya to recover within a few hundred years. And both Ning Qinya and Wu Jueqing knew this. That was why Ning Qinya had said, "If you guys don't even care about your faces, then my life is also nothing." At that time, Ning Qinya already knew that the odds were against him. However, the pride of standing at the pinnacle of the world for a long time still made Ning Qinya resolutely choose to have a vigorous battle. Because with these two people joining forces and locking down on him, he might not even have the confidence to escape. Especially with Wu Jueqing's poison technique, it was a powerful weapon. Right now, the clouds had already become a sea of poisonous fog. The clouds in the sky had all become highly toxic. The spiritual energy in the sky had also become highly toxic. Wu Jueqing and Ning Qinya were engaged in an earth-shattering battle in this poisonous fog. Wu Jueqing's cultivation was much higher than Ning Qianya's. Although they were on par at the moment, Ning Qinya knew that the other party's countless trump cards had yet to be revealed. However, the moment the other party revealed his trump cards, it would be the moment he cut off the lock on him and retreated at the risk of injury. The two people's figures transformed into thousands and thousands of afterimages in the sky, and the afterimages were actually also fighting with each other. With a gloomy and long howl, Wu Jueqing leaped up expressionlessly. His tall figure rose straight into the sky and pounced like a cloud in the sky. "Let's end this." Wu Jueqing was obviously unwilling to fight for a long time. Although Ning Qinya was strong, he was still a distance away from a super expert like him who had already transcended the heavens. Right now he was already very astonished. In the poisonous fog he could breathe and change his breath on his own, but Ning Qinya couldn't. He actually held his breath and fought with an expert like him for so long. "Wu Jueqing, if you want to end this, show me your true abilities." Ning Qinya chuckled. His figure was like a shadow as he charged straight up. "Morning wind rises in the universe." Wu Jueqing shouted loudly. His arms shook. Suddenly the wind and clouds in the sky surged. An indescribable aura appeared abruptly, as if the heavens had collapsed at this moment and fell abruptly. A cool and refreshing smell came with the sound of the wind. The east wind was mighty. It was the morning wind. The rain of apricot blossoms that wet one's clothes and the willow wind that blew on one's face was not cold. This was the aura of a morning that belonged to spring. It was already afternoon, evening, and the twilight was already deep. However, at this time the morning wind actually blew. Morning wind. Supreme martial artist Morning Wind's morning wind divine technique. Ning Qinya roared loudly. His long saber slashed out repeatedly. In an instant the obscure saber light formed thousands of lightning bolts, cutting through the oncoming morning wind and slashing furiously at Wu Jueqing. This attack was the decisive battle. There was a hint of mockery in Wu Jueqing's eyes. The shadow of the whip was like a mountain, suddenly falling down. However, at the moment the shadow of the whip was released, the long whip was also released. With the power of wind and thunder, it smashed fiercely at Ning Qinya. At the same time, a sword appeared in his hand. Then, his whole person suddenly turned into flowing clouds. He became one with the flowing clouds that were drifting away in the sky, carrying with him a light and unrestrained,
an inexplicable free and easy feeling. He floated out leisurely from the clouds, but swept up the sword light that drove the whole world. Became one sword. The power of thousands of winds and clouds, the power of the word blue, the power of the earth, the power of the stars, the power of the sun and the moon. At this moment, all of them were driven by this unrestrained sword light. As a whole, they converged into one sword. At this moment, Wu Jueqing recited, "Outside the heavens, one sway, one cloud." This sword carried with it 7 parts of elegance, 2 parts of desolation and 1 part of loneliness. It fell from the sky. Supreme martial artist flowing cloud sword. At this moment, as the morning wind blew, the flowing cloud sword carried with it a sense of transcendence from life and death as it attacked fiercely. At this moment, Ning Qinya was facing poison Dr. Wu Jueqing's famous whip and famous poison at the same time, as well as that which had become an eternal legend in the heavens. Morning wind rises in the universe, flowing clouds sway beyond the heavens. The 4 great ultimate techniques. It was a hopeless situation. Ning Qinya let out a loud roar and spat out a mouthful of blood. He laughed loudly. "Wu Jueqing, let's fight again another day." All of a sudden, the sword light was as bright as the sky. It cut through the whip shadow. It cut through the poisonous fog. It cut through the heavens and the earth. It cut through the void. It cut through the morning wind. It went against the flowing clouds. There was a loud boom. Wu Jueqing staggered and retreated in the air. However, Ning Qinya was spitting out blood all the way as he flew away. The aura lock had been broken. Although he was severely injured, Ning Qinya could only leave. He could leave already. Right at this moment, an indifferent voice said, "Brother Ning, leave your life behind before you leave." The Dharma Supreme's black robes and long hair fluttered as he blocked Ning Qinya's path of escape. He looked at Ning Qinya with a ruthless gaze. Then, the hands behind his back appeared at the same time. The moment they appeared, it was 10 punches. 10 punches that carried the Dharma Supreme's lifetime of cultivation. At this moment, the punches that had been accumulating power for a long time came out at the same time. Chapter 1080. The Dharma Supreme smiled indifferently. "Brother Ning, how can mere face be compared to Brother Ning's life?" Ning Qinya was a battle-hardened person. After being injured, how could he go head-on against the Dharma Supreme, whose cultivation was about the same as his and who had been recuperating for a long time? His defeat this time was already destined. A head-on clash. Ning Qinya let out a muffled grunt, blood spurting out of his mouth again and again. He turned into green smoke and fled. Behind him, the Dharma Supreme's face suddenly turned pale. He staggered and spat out a mouthful of blood before he managed to steady himself. He reached out and caught the mouthful of blood that Ning Qinya spat out at this moment. Bringing it to his eyes, he couldn't help but smile. In this mouthful of blood, there were clear pieces of internal organs. Ning Qinya's hoarse voice came from afar. "Dharma Supreme Wu Jueqing. Very good, very good." Like a gust of wind, he had already become a small black dot in the distance. In the sky, Wu Jueqing smiled indifferently. "Is it good?" Suddenly he turned and shouted, "Sword intent." A completely material sword light appeared and chased after Ning Qinya at lightning speed. This seemingly substantial beam of sword light was able to draw out a sword chi that stretched for hundreds of kilometers in the air. Completely material. Thousands of miles of mountains and rivers were suddenly shrouded in a murderous aura. All the mountains and valleys fell neatly at this moment. At this moment, when the Dharma Supreme saw this sword light, he couldn't help but be completely stunned. He cried out involuntarily, "This is the sword intent of the Tribulation Sword Master. How can it be?" The speed of this sword light was already indescribable with words. By the time Ning Qinya discovered this sword light, it was already behind him. In great shock he shouted, "Sword intent." In the blink of an eye, Ning Qinya tried his best to tilt his body to avoid being hit in the vital parts of his chest and abdomen. But with a muffled grunt, the sword intent came out of his left shoulder. A large bloody hole was blasted open, connecting the front and back. Ning Qinya spat out another mouthful of blood. Without a word, he sped up and turned into a black dot, instantly disappearing from their vision. In the sky, Wu Jueqing landed with a swoosh. With a wave of his hand, that seemingly material sword intent suddenly turned back and fell into his hand. Then it came before the Dharma Supreme. For a long time he felt something, and didn't speak for a long time. Until the time of an incense stick. "What a Ning Qinya! I can't believe he's still alive." Wu Jueqing's countenance was solemn. He said dispassionately, I didn't expect that the current number one in the heavens continent has already grown to such an extent. But he is, after all, seriously injured. The Dharma Supreme smiled and said, his meridians are severely damaged. His dantian suffered a blow. Morning wind divine art suppressed his spiritual sense. Flowing cloud sword destroyed a part of his soul, and my final attack shattered a part of his internal organs. On the other hand, your final strike of the astral sword dealt a heavy blow to all his injuries. The Dharma Supreme said indifferently, Brother Wu, how long do you think it will take for Ning Tianya to recover his cultivation? Wu Jueqing frowned. A cold glint flashed across his eyes. It won't recover for at least 50 years. Even with the help of the heavy pill, it was absolutely impossible. Within 10 years he would not be able to use too much of his cultivation base. Even an emperor-level expert can kill him as long as he can be found within 3 months. He is severely injured now and is only holding on to his last breath to escape. Once he stops, he won't be able to move at all. Wu Jueqing said dispassionately, however, people like him would usually have a life-saving trump card. Therefore, since we can't catch up to him if he really wants to hide, we won't be able to find him either. You'd better give up on this idea. The Dharma Supreme smiled and said, all right. Anyway, we've already achieved our goal. This variable has been eliminated. Wu Jueqing looked at him and said, that's right. Besides, I reckon that you won't be able to recover fully even after 7 days from the recoil. Over there, that is the most important thing. Therefore, during this period of time, healing is the most important thing for you. The Dharma Supreme smiled lightly. That's right. Let's go back immediately. Wu Jueqing tilted his head and asked, do you have any doubts about my astral sword? The Dharma Supreme smiled bitterly and shook his head. I'm surprised, but I don't have any doubts. Wu Jueqing smiled coldly and didn't say anything. The two of them headed in the direction of Tianji City. At this moment, 15 days had passed since the end of the semi-finals of the medicine banquet. This night, Chu Yang was anxiously reading through the information collected by Nangong Shifeng and the rest. He was constantly making assumptions and resolving them, thinking of countless possibilities that had yet to happen. The door opened and Zi Sheqing walked in. I have something to tell you. Zi Sheqing leaned against the door and looked at Chu Yang. What is it? Chu Yang raised his head. My Tao state energy is only one battle away from being fully collected. Zi Sheqing said dispassionately. You mean, you want me to fight with you? Chu Yang raised his head and asked bitterly. No. Zi Sheqing said indifferently, I don't want you to send me away directly. The Tao state needed for that battle can be left to others. I just want to tell you about it. I don't have any other intentions. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. Don't tell me you want to leave that battle to the big clans and law enforcement officers? In that case, you're mentally prepared? Zi Sheqing hesitated for a while and said, they will definitely make a move. However, it's impossible for them to hurt me. The reason why I kept that battle alive was to see what kind of method they would use to deal with me. I'm very curious about this. Chu Yang heaved a long sigh. He didn't say anything, but his heart suddenly felt uncomfortable. He finally understood what Zi Sheqing meant. It wasn't that Zi Sheqing didn't know about that battle. However, it wasn't just the Dharma Supreme and the rest who were looking forward to it. Zi Sheqing herself was also looking forward to it. The Dharma Supreme and the big clans wanted to clear the obstacles, but Zi Sheqing also wanted to make use of that battle to clear some obstacles for Chu Yang in the future and reduce some pressure. This was the main reason why Zi Sheqing was dragging it out, even though she could have transcended and left after the battle. However, Zi Sheqing would never say it out loud. She would only do everything for him silently. At this moment, Chu Yang's heart was extremely bitter. Go. You don't have to wait until then. I can accompany you to comprehend and absorb the Tao state energy now. I'll send you off happily. Chu Yang said. No. It's a pity to leave now. Zi Sheqing smiled faintly. You don't have to worry that I won't leave. At the latest, I will leave after 2 months. Chu Yang was disappointed. At this moment, his heart suddenly felt very painful. Looking at Zi Sheqing, who was leaning against the door, Chu Yang suddenly felt that she was so close to him yet so far away. They were clearly only a few feet apart, but it felt like they were separated by heaven and earth. Zi Sheqing seemed to be standing on the moon in the distance. Chu Yang's lips quivered a few times before he finally said, all right. At this moment, he clearly had a lot of things to say in his heart. However, after thinking for a while, he still didn't say a word in the end. There was no need to say anything. Zi Sheqing looked at Chu Yang's somewhat lonely face. Her lips moved as if she wanted to say something.
However, after thinking for a long time, she only sighed. Similarly, she also felt that she had a lot of things to say, but ultimately she didn't say anything. One of them sat in front of the bed while the other leaned against the door. Both of them lowered their heads and didn't speak for a long time. The night was foggy. The night was getting darker. Zi Sheching's light robe was already wet from the thin fog. Chu Yang stood up silently. He picked up his black robe, walked over and gently draped it over Zi Sheching's body. Zi Sheching didn't say anything, nor did she resist. With Zi Sheching's cultivation, not to mention this light cold fog, even if all the coldness in the northernmost glaciers gathered at this moment, she might not feel cold. However, at the moment when Chu Yang's black robe was draped over her body, she shivered slightly as if she couldn't stand the cold. Her delicate body now gave off the feeling that she was even more fragile than before. Chu Yang draped the black robe over her body and his hands stayed still. There was an impulse and desire in his heart to hug this delicate body tightly in front of him. However, he kept his hands open and maintained the posture of draping the robe over Zi Sheching. After a long time, he sighed and gently retracted his hands little by little. During this period, Zi Sheching had been looking out of the window at the night sky. A trace of undetectable sadness and disappointment flashed past her eyes very quickly. "I'm going back to sleep." Zi Sheching bit her lip and smiled. "Okay." Chu Yang's hands drooped down. He smiled and said, "It's indeed not early." Zi Sheching nodded and smiled. "It's not early." She turned and left. Chu Yang stood there in a daze. A white shadow flashed and Zi Sheching suddenly came back. She took a deep look at Chu Yang. Chu Yang was stunned. "Why?" Zi Sheching smiled and suddenly turned to close the door, locking herself and Chu Yang in the room. Chu Yang suddenly felt that his mouth was dry. He said hoarsely, "What do you want to do?" Zi Sheching said lightly, "I've promised you before that I'll leave all the heavenly treasures that I've collected from various planes to you. I just remembered tonight, so I'll give them to you first. Otherwise, when I get busy in a few days and forget about it, it'll be bad." Chu Yang smiled dryly. He suddenly felt a little disappointed and said somewhat subconsciously, "Oh? It's about this." Zi Sheching rolled her eyes at him and said, "What did you think it was?" As she said, she waved her hand. Suddenly, a pile of heavenly treasures appeared in front of Chu Yang, almost filling up the room. "Quickly keep them. Why are you standing there like a fool?" Zi Sheching said angrily. "Oh." Chu Yang hurriedly kept them in the tribulation space. Zi Sheching released them 3 times in a row before finally indicating that there were no more. She smiled softly and said, "You can ask the sword spirit to help you with some of these medicines. They can help you upgrade the spiritual spring water to the spring of life." Okay. Chu Yang didn't know what he was saying or doing. He only felt that he was sleepwalking. Zi Sheching smiled and turned to leave. The door creaked and closed. This time, Zi Sheching didn't appear again. The night was cold and windy. Chu Yang stood there in a daze and looked at the door. Finally he sighed deeply and murmured, "2 worlds, a long starry sky. Once we part, we won't meet again?" Chapter 1081. He heaved a long sigh. In the space of tribulation, the sword spirit was inspecting the elixirs that suddenly came in. He was so happy that he danced. "I'm really rich now. So many heavenly treasures. I've never seen many of them before. But their effects are as powerful as before. I'm rich." The sword spirit was extremely excited. "Rich?" Chu Yang's consciousness sank into the space of tribulation. With a straight face he said coldly, "You only know how to be rich." The sword spirit laughed and didn't mind. He said, "The quality of this batch of elixirs is very high. In total there were 3,700 stalks. And the most valuable part should be from the heavens." He blinked mysteriously. "That mysterious plane." Chu Yang said lightly, "Oh? So many?" Sensing that Chu Yang wasn't in a good mood, the sword spirit was a little puzzled. Why did he still have such a straight face when he had such a big harvest just now? What was going on? How are the best quality of these elixirs compared to the great miracle herbs? Chu Yang asked. "They can't be compared." The sword spirit said, "Although the great miracle herbs may not be able to surpass these heavenly treasures in terms of efficacy, they contain the power of the heavenly way of the heavens. That's why they are the main component of heavy elixirs. These elixirs, especially those from the heavenly way, have medicinal efficacy that surpasses the great miracle herbs. But they don't have the power of the heavenly way in them, so they can't be compared." Oh. Chu Yang was silent for a while. Then he said, If it's heavy elixirs, will they be effective on people like Big Sister Z? The sword spirit became serious this time. He said, Z Sheching's cultivation is too high. If she's injured, it won't be an ordinary injury. Ordinary heavy elixirs won't be of much help to her. Ordinary heavy elixirs won't work? Chu Yang sensitively found the key point. He said, that is to say, there are special heavy elixirs that can be effective? Yes. The sword spirit deeply regretted his slip of the tongue again. Then I want such special heavy elixirs. Chu Yang said with certainty, at least 10 of them. At least 10 of them. The sword spirit jumped up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Dream on. Now that all the great miracle herbs have been refined, only 15 of those super heavy elixirs can be refined. Don't you know that among the new medicines, there are less than 100 of the most valuable ones? If I were to refine the kind of heavy pill you need, I'm afraid at least 80 of them would be gone just like that. Furthermore, this is the minimum requirement. At most, you can refine 1 pellet. It can be used by Z Sheching to heal her injuries or improve her cultivation. The sword spirit jumped up and down. 10 pills. At the very least. You're going to damage the foundation of the miracle medicine. What's more, those medicines aren't enough. Then 1 is fine. Chu Yang remained unmoved. He didn't take the sword spirit's words to heart. The sword spirit heaved a long sigh. His complexion was ashen and he seemed to have lost his soul. It could be seen that he was extremely reluctant. Sword spirit, I don't want to do this either. However, Big Sister Z was about to leave. In the future, she would be the only one to roam the boundless skies alone. Alone and without help, she left all the heavenly treasures to me at this time. Chu Yang said in a deep voice, what if I get hurt or bullied? Even if I were to refine 10 heavy pills for her now, it would only guarantee her 10 chances. That's all. However, the heavenly treasures she gave me are enough to support my foundation in this heavenly realm. The sword spirit sighed helplessly. I knew it's because of this. All right. But at most 1 pellet. Furthermore, the spiritual energy here isn't sufficient. Even if you take it, it won't be very effective. So, it will only be effective when you reach the heavenly imperial court. Chu Yang asked, there's such a strange thing? It's not that it can't be used here. It's just that after taking it, you won't be able to gather enough spiritual energy to clear your body in the shortest time possible. Therefore, a large part of the medicinal effect of the heavy pill will be wasted. However, if Z Sheching takes it when she reaches that place, it won't be a problem to bring her back to life. The sword spirit explained, for example, if taking 1 of such heavy pills here can increase your cultivation by 500 years, then in the heavenly imperial court, it can increase your cultivation by 2,000 years. Do you understand what I mean? I see. Chu Yang finally understood. What a waste. Yes, there were some things that could only be used to their greatest effect in certain places and under certain circumstances. Just like what the sword spirit said, heavy pills. Chu Yang suddenly thought of the conspiracy of the big clans. He couldn't help but frown and murmured, certain places, specific environments. He started to ponder. In the temporary residence of the Ling clan, Ling Hanwu tiptoed out of the room. He didn't know what was going on with this winter. It was almost the end of the year, but there was no sign of snow. This made Ling Hanwu anxious. Ling Hanwu's greatest wish in life was to see the snow with the person he loved the most. The white fairies that flew all over the sky poured out all of their feelings, all of their thoughts, all of their unwillingness and deep love onto the white snow. From then on he would have no regrets in life. Even if he died at that time he wouldn't have any regrets. However, the heavens didn't show any signs of this. Looking at the gloomy sky, it seemed that it was going to snow soon. Ling Hanwu was going out again. A figure flashed and a person stood at the door with his hands behind his back, looking at him coldly. You're going out again? Yes, ancestor. Ling Hanwu stood with his hands behind his back. The person in front of him was Ling Fengyun. He was also the person Ling Hanwu admired the most in his life. You're going to see that girl from the Yi clan again? Ling Fengyun asked lightly. I heard that ever since Yi Chuqing came here, you've been going to see her almost every day. Yes. Ling Hanwu's heart trembled. He felt that the ancestor wasn't in a good mood today and couldn't help but be careful. She has no interest in you. Don't pester her, Ling Fengyun said lightly. Ling Hanwu was about to speak. However, Ling Fengyun said lightly, the last few times you went to see Yi Chuqing, you always brought a follower with you. Now that follower of yours is missing. However, that follower of yours looks unfamiliar to me. He shouldn't be from the Ling clan, right? Where is he now? The corners of Ling Hanwu's mouth twitched. He said, "Ancestor, that's a friend of mine. He came to the medicine banquet to broaden his horizons." "That friend of yours is Meng Gein, right?" Ling Fengyun's eyes suddenly shot out a sharp light. "Your best friend is your love rival, right?" Ling Hanwu's heart shook. He said, "Yes." Ling Fengyun paced 2 steps and said lightly, "I managed to protect you at the medicine banquet last time, but it also incurred the wrath of the Dharma Supreme because of this. Don't run around during this critical period. Just stay at home." Ling Hanwu kept quiet and didn't speak. Ling Fengyun asked casually, "I heard that Meng Gein changed his name to Meng Chaoran?" Ling Hanwu's whole body shook. He still didn't speak, but the expression in his eyes changed rapidly. "I heard that Meng Chaoran is Chu Yang's teacher?" Ling Fengyun said lightly, "And Chu Yang is the descendant of Chu Xiaoxin. And that Chu Xiaoxin once killed 17 people from the Ling clan and snatched away the most precious heavenly wood?" Ling Hanwu couldn't understand what Ling Fengyun meant, but he felt his heart tremble a little. "And Chu Yang is like the sun now." Ling Fengyun smiled lightly. "So, don't go to Yi Chuchen's place. So as not to cause unnecessary trouble and cause misunderstandings." Ling Hanwu raised his head abruptly, even his voice changed a little. "Elder Master. Could it be that the clan wants to deal with Meng Chaoran?" "You don't need to know about this," Ling Fengyun said lightly. He looked at him sternly and lectured, "You are a man who values relationships and have no regrets. You have the strength of character of a man. So, even though I know that you indulge your love rival, it's for the sake of the woman you love, so I will try my best to keep it a secret and fulfill your feelings. But now is a critical period. The Yi clan has already sensed something. It's not suitable for you to interfere." Ling Fengyun let out a long sigh. "Hanwu, you are a junior that I like very much. I also know that matters of the heart cannot be forced. A person only has one true love that is engraved in his bones and engraved in his heart. You've already had it, so don't keep thinking about it." Ling Hanwu was stunned. Suddenly his mind was in a mess. He said in a hoarse voice, "The Yi clan already knows about this? How did they find out?" Ling Fengyun frowned. "You don't need to know about this." Ling Hanwu lowered his head in a daze and murmured, "Someone in the Ling clan betrayed me?" "Impudent!" Ling Fengyun shouted angrily. "You're the one who betrayed us. How can you say that others betrayed you?" Ling Hanwu smiled miserably. "Back then, when Meng Gein got into trouble, Chuchen wanted to commit suicide several times. She was in so much pain that she wanted to die. Now that so many years have passed, the feelings from back then have not weakened at all. If something happens to Meng Chaoran in front of her again, she will die. She will die." Ling Fengyun said lightly, "But that has nothing to do with you anymore." Ling Hanwu took 2 steps back, his face full of despair. "Go back." Ling Fengyun comforted him lightly. "Go back and have a good sleep. You'll realize that everything is over. All your worries will be gone." Ling Hanwu bit his lips and suddenly chuckled. He strode forward and walked to the door of the courtyard. He looked at Ling Fengyun with a determined gaze and said, "I want to go." Ling Fengyun's white robes fluttered in the cold wind, his gaze fixed on him. "Want to go?" Ling Hanwu said each word clearly. His voice was filled with determination. Chapter 1082. Ling Fengyun looked at him quietly. Ling Hanwu met his gaze without backing down. The two of them didn't move for a long time. Ling Hanwu had always admired this elder master. He had always regarded him as his idol. In the past, whenever he saw him, he would prostrate on the ground and never dared to raise his head to look at him. For a long time, the endless legends about the elder master had become an immortal monument in the heart of the Ling clan. One could only look up to him. One couldn't look at him. But this time, he resolutely and stubbornly raised his head to look at the elder master in the eyes. At this moment he suddenly realized that actually, when he really raised his head, it was just like this. The elder master was also human. He was also made of flesh and blood. Looking at the pair of eyes that flashed with arrogance, pride and stubbornness, Ling Fengyun sighed deeply. At this moment, his heart was somewhat palpitating. Many years ago he was also like this. Ling Fengyun admired Ling Hanwu not because he was the grandson of the Ling clan. The most important reason was that Ling Hanwu's path of love was exactly the same as his. Astonishingly similar. That was why Ling Fengyun saw Ling Hanwu, this great-grandson of his, in a different light. Now that he saw Ling Hanwu, it was as if he saw himself in the past.
It was the same bitter love, the same despair, the same sadness, the same. The person the woman fell in love with was the enemy of the clan. In the end she was killed by the clan. Looking at Ling Hanwu's stubborn eyes, Ling Fengyun was in a trance. It was as if he had returned to that night. That night at the peak of the snowy peak, white snow flew everywhere. That woman stumbled to him, begging him to save that man. He wanted to go and was about to go but was stopped by his father. At that time, that woman's face was full of tears and she kowtowed to him frantically. Her face was full of despair. As long as you save him, I'll let you do whatever you want to me. You can do whatever you want. I'll be your slave or servant, your wife or concubine. Fengyun, as long as you can let him live. That shrill cry seemed to still be by his ears. He didn't go in the end. When the matter was over, he brought that woman over. That man's corpse was already lying on the snow. I will never forget that woman's despair and madness at that time. She stared deeply at him, her eyes filled with endless resentment and bone-deep hatred. She didn't say anything. She just pulled out her sword and tied her hair with his. Then she cut herself with the sword. She fell into the arms of that man's corpse, tying their hair and becoming husband and wife. Was that the fate of the next life? But she didn't even want to say a final word before she died. It had been a few thousand years, but Ling Fengyun could never forget that scene. Decades later, she finally calmed down and got married. On the night of her wedding, she dreamed of that scene again. For thousands of years, it had become his inner demon. His cultivation had also reached the peak of 8th grade supreme martial artist, and he could not advance any further. Everything was because of that incident. The inner demon locked onto his heart, and he wouldn't rest until he was dead. Ling Fengyun was lost in his thoughts, forgetting that there was someone in front of him. Ling Hanwu looked at him for a while. He walked out resolutely and was about to step out of the courtyard. "Stop right there!" Ling Fengyun shouted. Ling Hanwu stopped at the door. But he didn't turn back. "We are dealing with Chuyang now." Ling Fengyun said, "We must kill Chuyang. But it's not advisable to make use of his teacher to threaten him. If you want to go, I won't stop you. But you have to think about it yourself. This time it concerns the survival of the big clans. If you go, you may die." Ling Fengyun said in a low voice. There was something in his heart that he didn't say out loud. If you go and don't die, then when you come back, it means that your biggest inner demon has been removed. The Ling clan will have another peak 2nd grade supreme martial artist, or even an expert who can collapse the sky and break the void. "I know," Ling Hanwu replied lightly. "I'm already over 40 years old this year, almost 50 years old. My mentality is very mature. I know what I'm doing and the consequences." Ling Hanwu said quietly, "But I can't control my heart. I can't control my emotions either. I don't want to control them. After so many years, if I wanted to, I would have gotten it long ago. But I've been helping them and fulfilling her wishes. It has become a habit of mine. I don't want to force her to do anything. I can die. But Mengyin can't die." Ling Hanwu said softly. Ling Fengyun heaved a long sigh. "Go." Ling Hanwu turned around and knelt down with a thud. He repeatedly kowtowed to Ling Fengyun's back. Then, without a word, he rose into the air and left. At the moment he swept out of the Ling clan's courtyard, the cold wind that came head-on hit his face with its icy moisture. Ling Hanwu suddenly had an inexplicable thought. If decades later, when Yi Chuchen was happily married and had a house full of children and grandchildren, would she think of him? As he thought about it, the corners of his mouth curled up into a sad smile. Coldness fell from the sky. Joy flashed across Ling Hanwu's face. "It's snowing. Is it finally snowing? Could it be that my wish?" Ling Fengyun listened as he knelt down, kowtowed, got up and got up. He didn't move. After a long time he said softly, "You must come back alive." Snowflakes drifted down. The first snow of this winter finally fell in Tianji City. It slowly became more and more frightening. In these few days, Chuyang had been paying close attention to the movements in the city. At the same time he supervised Mo Qingwu, Dong Wushang and the rest in their cultivation, and supervised the sword spirit in refining medicine. He was making preparations in all aspects in an orderly manner. In fact, he had even prepared a large number of incomplete heavy pills, including the possibility of casualties in the upcoming war. During this period of time, Nangong Shifeng's life was extremely fulfilling. Every day he would tirelessly collect all kinds of information and send it to Chuyang. And every time he sent it to him, Chuyang would also start to treat Nangong Shifeng. So every time he left, Nangong Shifeng would feel that his old illness had eased a lot.
In his excitement he worked even harder to collect information. What he couldn't understand the most was that Chu Yang now even wanted information about any movement in Tianji City. This increased Nangong Shifeng's workload. It forced him to spend a lot of crystals. Firstly, it was to buy, and secondly, it was to hire some local gangsters. In these few days, Nangong Shifeng had almost become the boss of the local gangsters. Every day, every moment, there would be many people coming to deliver information. Then, Nangong Shifeng would collect these worthless information and take out a lot of crystals. After the day's summary, he would send it to Chu Yang as usual. After Nangong Shifeng left, Chu Yang started to read bit by bit. It wasn't that he didn't have hope for these pieces of information, but they played a very small role. He could only guess any clues from them. Towards the end, his eyes were already a little tired. Looking at the sky, it was already evening and dusk had descended. He stretched and was about to take a rest when suddenly, a piece of information jumped into his eyes. Chu Yang's mind quivered and he froze in his stretching posture. He felt a chill down his spine. His spirit was immediately lifted. The information was as follows. Many people from the Yi clan seemed to have gone south, towards the direction of the South City Gate. The leader was Yi Shiyu. The number was unknown, their cultivation was unknown, and their purpose was unknown. It was speculated that they were going to a hotel? Or Yi Chuchen's residence. Yi Chuchen's residence. This word made Chu Yang suddenly alert. Ever since Yi Chuchen came to Tianji City, she had been living there. She was almost isolated from the world and rarely appeared. Chu Yang had secretly gone there before, but he didn't meet her even after several visits. The Yi clan also rarely went there. Why did the Yi clan go there in such a large scale today? There didn't seem to be any reason for the Yi clan to go there. He thought of his teacher, Meng Chaoran, who had disappeared since entering the city, and Ling Hanwu buying good things every day during this period. Chu Yang suddenly thought of a scary thing. Could it be that his teacher was at Yi Chuchen's place now? Could it be that the Yi clan went there in such a large scale for him? Chu Yang jumped up suddenly. His instincts made his heart beat wildly and he broke out in cold sweat instantly. With a bang, Chu Yang rushed out of the room. The courtyard was empty. Moon Breeze had brought their disciple somewhere. Zi Sheqing had brought the two little girls, Chu Lur and Mo Qinggu, out shopping and hadn't returned yet. Dong Wushang and Rui Budong were meditating. Bu Luqing was sitting under the flower rack, drinking in boredom. Once Chu Yang went out, he thought for a while and went straight to the flower rack. Dong Wushang and the rest couldn't help him now. The only safe thing now was to ask Bu Luqing for help. It was better to be safe than sorry. It didn't matter if he made a wasted trip, but if something happened to Meng Chaoran, Chu Yang would never forgive himself. Elder Bu, help me out, accompany me to do something, Chu Yang said anxiously. What is it? Bu Luqing rolled his eyes and said, can't you see that I'm busy? Chu Yang's face was sweating. It's an urgent matter. Bu Luqing was unmoved. Are you going or not? Chu Yang was anxious. He threatened, if you don't accompany me and delay my important matter, when little Wu comes back, I will immediately instigate her to break off her master-disciple relationship with you. I'm not joking with you. How dare you? Bu Luqing was furious. Don't you know what kind of person I am? If I say it, I can do it. Chu Yang lowered his voice and leaned close to Bu Luqing's ear. With a dangerous tone, he said word by word, you know, I'm the Tribulation Sword Master. Fuck you. Bu Luqing stood up. Don't mention these words to me. I'm allergic to these words. I cramp when I hear them. Damn you. This was the first time in my life that I was threatened like this. And it's you, a brat. So are you going or not? Chu Yang asked fiercely. I'll go. Bu Luqing only felt anger in his chest, almost exploding. He said angrily, I'll go with you. I'm warning you. If there's nothing else, don't blame me for being impolite. My waist is very uncomfortable. I'll take an hour off. I'll go out for a massage. When I come back, I'll continue to write the third update, so it might be late. Chapter 1083. Yi Chuchen liked peace and quiet and was not willing to participate in anything. Ever since she came to Tianji City, she had occupied a small courtyard all by herself. This place was located in the outskirts of the city and had beautiful scenery. There was a sense of seclusion and tranquility. Yi Chuchen liked places like this. In the Yi clan, ever since the incident back then, the clan members seemed to have a subtle sense of guilt towards Yi Chuchen. No matter what request Yi Chuchen made, they would not reject it. But Yi Chuchen rarely made requests. Her only request was that the place she lived in must be elegant and quiet,
and she did not like to be disturbed by others. Therefore the Yi clan head also tried his best to fulfill this request. But all these requests did not include Meng Guin. In the past they did not know and did not pay attention to a small fry like Chu Yang. But now Chu Yang's power was growing day by day, to the extent that even the big clans could not ignore him. The Yi clan had no choice but to consider him. And at this time they found out from the Dharma Supreme that Meng Guin was Meng Chaoran, and Meng Chaoran was actually Chu Yang's master. This fact caused the Yi family members to be greatly shocked. How could the Yin clan not know what kind of enmity the Yi clan had with Meng Chaoran? The enmity of killing one's family and exterminating one's clan. It could be said that as long as Meng Chaoran existed, the Yi clan would not be able to eat or sleep well. And now Meng Chaoran's disciple actually possessed such tyrannical strength. Then, when Meng Chaoran reunited with his disciple one day, would he take revenge on the Yi clan? This was something that did not even need to be thought about. What was most satisfying was that the Yi clan actually found out from the Ling clan that Meng Chaoran was now in Tianji City. And he was probably with Yi Chuchen right now. If the Yi clan did not make a move, then they would really be fools. The small building had its back against the mountains and faced the clear water. The cold winter landscape was especially bleak. Yi Chuchen sat in front of the window. It was already afternoon, and the water in front of the building had a thick mist rising. Her eyes were as misty as the mist. Behind her was a figure in green. His face was ordinary, but his aura was elegant and otherworldly. "It's snowing?" Yi Chuchen murmured. "It's snowing?" The person behind him unconsciously replied with a smile. "It's usually your favorite time when it snows. Why, are you unhappy now?" "Gain, tell me. What do you think our future will be like?" Yi Chuchen's eyes were bleak as she looked at the misty snowflakes outside and asked softly. He seemed to be mumbling to himself. "Future?" The person behind her was none other than Meng Chaoran in disguise. He smiled softly as if he had seen through the world. "I never thought that the two of us would have a future." He smiled faintly as if he had come to a realization. "The days we spent together were like a dream. With each passing day there will be one less person. Haha, that's why I never think about what will happen after today." Yi Chuchen smiled miserably. "That's right. My father killed all your relatives. As long as you're alive you must take revenge. But that was my father. The two of us had no future to begin with." Meng Chaoran fell silent. Vengeance must be protected. But how could he repay her love? This was a dead knot that could never be untied. It lay between the two of them. With this dead knot, the two of them couldn't even elope. Because when they saw each other day and night, how could they not think of hatred? Yi Chuchen would remember that her father was Meng Chaoran's enemy, and so would Meng Chaoran. If they weren't together they would be tormented by lovesickness, emaciated and depressed. But if they were together they would be tormented all the same. This pair of lovers had fallen into the most terrifying cycle for lovers in the world. Meng Guin changed his name to Meng Chaoran. He wanted to be detached from the world and look down on everything. But he couldn't really be detached after all. "Perhaps only death can release me," Meng Chaoran said leisurely. "Death? Is it that easy?" Yi Chuchen also smiled. "If death is possible I really don't want to live anymore. When I can't see you I want to see you every day. But when I see you I'll think of those things and I'll be in so much pain that I want to die. This is a dead knot." Meng Chaoran sighed deeply. "I've seen through life and death, seen through worldly affairs and seen through worldly affairs. But the only thing I haven't seen through is you, the only thing I haven't seen through is hatred." Yi Chuchen leaned back slightly and leaned her shoulder against Meng Chaoran's chest. With tears in her eyes she said, "Let's not think about those things. They'll know that you're here sooner or later. Maybe then we'll be free." Meng Chaoran chuckled and hugged her. "So I came here just to spend some time with you. I've never thought of leaving." Right at this moment, a strange voice said plainly, "The problem is even if you want to leave you can't. You can't even leave." Yi Chubao and Meng Chaoran were shocked and looked up at the same time. On the opposite side of the small staircase there were two men in black. They were riding the waves and coming over. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. People wearing the Yi clan's uniform flew over from all directions. In an instant the small building was completely surrounded. Yi Shiyu. After the initial shock Yi Chuchen actually calmed down in an instant. She shouted, "Come out! How dare you? Who allowed you to do this?" A figure flashed and Yi Shiyu appeared downstairs. This time he didn't show his sissy side. Instead he said seriously, "Aunt, I'm sorry. This operation was personally arranged by the Elder Master." I'm just following orders. In fact, everything has nothing to do with me. The operation is not under my command. My only purpose here is to prove that the direct descendant of the Yi clan is involved in this matter and to end this matter. That's all. Yi Chuchen smiled faintly. So, it's the clan's intention to capture Meng Yun? Yi Shiyu said frankly, this time the clan's intention is only to capture Meng Yun. They definitely won't kill him. Meng Chaoran's eyes shone sharply. He chuckled. Are they using me to deal with my disciple? Yi Shiyu said, Uncle Meng is indeed wise. Meng Chaoran smiled faintly and said, as a master, I'm very ashamed. I can't help my disciple at all. If I help the enemy, I won't even have the face to die. Someone at the side said, what nonsense. Hurry up and capture him. Go back and report. With a loud bang, the small building suddenly broke into pieces, and the whole building collapsed. Yi Chuchen and Meng Chaoran flew out of the window and stood by the pond. With two clangs, the two of them drew their swords at the same time. The small building behind them slowly collapsed. And are you going to make a move too? Yi Shiyu asked bitterly. Yi Chuchen's expression darkened. She turned and looked at Meng Chaoran with tenderness in her eyes. Finally she said softly, many years ago my heart was already given to this person. What happened back then was our Yi clan's fault. This matter has long been publicly acknowledged. There's no need to say more. But the trouble and pain this matter has caused for both of us is incomparable. For so many years I've always wanted to become Meng Yun's wife and the daughter-in-law of the Meng clan, but my wish has never been fulfilled. Yi Chuchen smiled miserably. With a flash of her sword, she cut off a strand of Meng Chaoran's hair and her own hair. Yi Chuchen carefully tied the two strands of hair together tightly, her face full of happiness and satisfaction. Today, before I die, I have to fulfill this wish no matter what. After all, I'm going to die soon. Before I die, I don't have to think so much about what I do. So, I might as well not think about it. Yi Chuchen turned and looked at Meng Chaoran with tenderness in her eyes. Gin, remember, from now on we're already husband and wife. Chuchu is your wife, the daughter-in-law of the Meng clan. If there's a next life, don't forget. Meng Chaoran's Adam's apple bobbed up and down. He tried hard to smile. That's good too. After this battle, the enmity, hatred, affection, and love will all disappear. Ah, that's how it is. Getting married before a battle is also a story to be passed down for generations. The two of them suddenly knelt down side by side with stern expressions. The heavens above bear witness to us. Today Meng Chaoran and Yi Chuchen swear to the heavens that we're husband and wife. We don't ask to grow old together, but we ask to be together for all eternity. The two of them bowed to the heavens and bowed to each other once before they stood up. They smiled at each other. They actually didn't take the impending life and death crisis to heart at all. Yi Chuchen turned around and smiled. Let's not talk about the past for now. Let's pretend that there's no enmity between us. But now, I'm already Meng Chaoran's wife. If you want to kill him, you want to kill my husband. I can't just wait to die. I'll fight back with all my might until I lose my life in your hands. The Yi clan members looked at each other, not knowing whether to advance or retreat. What should they do about this matter? Eldest Miss was so resolute. Did she really want to kill her own family's eldest miss with her own hands? The snowflakes turned from sparse to dense and fluttered down. In an instant it was pure white. A cold and gloomy voice said, she's already someone else's daughter-in-law. What does she have to do with the Yi clan? Why should we have any more scruples? Let's attack together and kill this adulterous pair. The person who spoke had a unique gloomy tone that was immediately recognizable. Yidi, the Yi clan's elder master. Yi Chuchen and Meng Chaoran revealed a look of relief at the same time. They had waited for more than 10 years. They had been waiting for this sentence. And it was from the most revered elder master of the Yi clan. She's already someone else's daughter-in-law. What does she have to do with the Yi clan? They were relieved. But it was a pity that what was about to come after this relief was life and death. The Yi clan members roared and rushed forward. Wait. A voice filled with grief and despair shouted, if you want to kill them, you'll have to kill me first. A white figure, which seemed to be the same color as the snow, suddenly jumped out. Ling Hanwu. When Ling Hanwu arrived, it was at the moment when the small building collapsed. He was filled with joy. Although he might die this time, it was snowing. It wasn't bad to admire the snowy scenery with Yi Chuchen on the battlefield. Bai Xian's wish was fulfilled. It was also fulfilling friendship, fulfilling love and fulfilling one's wish. However, he had come full of joy and excitement. Amidst the fluttering snow, he heard the vows of Yi Chuchen and Meng Chaoran. At that moment, Ling Hanwu's heart shattered into pieces. In this snowy land that he had been looking forward to for a long time, which should have made him delirious with joy, he was dumbstruck and his heart was like dead ashes. Chapter 1084. On a cold winter's night, heavy snow drifted about. Ling Hanwu's heart was bitterly cold. Complete and utter despair. Chuchen, you like snow too. How about I go with you to see the snow some other day? Sure. Chuchen, it might snow in a couple of days. I'll come and find you then. That's not a good idea. I've already made plans with Geen to go and see the snow together. Do you want to come along? I won't go then. I'm afraid I have something to do these few days. Chuchen, it's going to snow again. It's so cloudy these few days. I'll bring you out to play in the snow. I believe it'll definitely be fun. No, I'm sorry, Hanwo. You know that with Geen gone, I don't have any mood left. I'm sorry, Chuchen, this year. Chuchen, you aren't going again? Chuchen, my greatest wish in this life is to watch the snow with you. This was what Ling Hanwu had said in an almost pleading tone this spring. Yi Chuchen had replied then, sure, I'll fulfill this wish for you on the day it snows. Yi Chuchen's expression had been very serene then, with a hint of guilt. Apart from running in the snow together when they were young, they had never watched the snow together even once after they grew up. Ling Hanwu, who had grown up on the peak of ice and snow and was almost covered in snow all year round, actually had the greatest wish in this life after he became an adult, just to watch the snow with his beloved. From full of hope to gradual disappointment, then to faint hope, then to a faint test that he almost didn't dare to say, and finally to a desperate request in front of her. Yi Chuchen finally agreed. At that time, Yi Chuchen simply wanted to fulfill this wish for Hanwu, who had always taken care of her. She had no other intentions. Ling Hanwu knew, but he didn't care. Therefore, he insisted on coming to the medicine banquet this time even though he wasn't the clan's pharmacist. He must come. I once thought that when we watched the snow together, I would tell you how many legends were contained in the snowflakes, how many Leduo were there in this world of ice and snow. How I practiced in the snow, how I comprehended in the snow. I used to think that when we watched the snow together, I would tell you how much I liked you. My heart for you was like the snow, pure and white, untainted by even a speck of dust, yet it connected the heavens and the earth, filling the heavens and the earth. I used to think that when we watched the snow together, I would kneel down in front of the fairies of heaven and earth. I would use the weather that the heavens gave me the most and use my most sincere heart to propose to you, I once thought, but in the end I just want to watch the snow with you. Even if they didn't say a word, they could still hear each other's soft breathing. They walked quietly in the snow for a while. Their remaining wishes were fulfilled. Even if I know that you're thinking of someone else when you're watching the snow with me, I also hope that I can walk in the snow. This is my lifelong dream. But today this dream was finally shattered. Yi Chuchen, under the clan's coercion, finally chose to swear an oath and become husband and wife with Meng Chaoran at the moment of life and death. She took a step back, she would have unlimited life. But she took a step forward instead. If she took this step forward, she would die. But she had no regrets. She had no regrets. But Ling Hanwu had completely fallen into a bottomless abyss at this moment. The person he loved had already become someone else's wife, his good friend's wife. Previously, although he knew that she would become someone else's wife sooner or later, she wasn't. But now her status had changed. Although it was just a title. But a wife was different from a free woman. If Ling Hanwu were to invite someone else's wife to walk in the snow, even he himself would feel that something was wrong. Now, every snowflake in the sky seemed to be a mockery of Ling Hanwu's wish for the past decade or so. Every snowflake shattered his heart. What I've been looking forward to for a long time, when it finally arrives, what it brings to me is despair. This feeling made Ling Hanwu's heart go through ups and downs. A moment ago he felt as if he was standing at the mouth of a volcano, and the next moment his whole body was as cold as ice. Ling Hanwu felt as if his thoughts had exploded. His mind instantly flew into the night sky and exploded into a sky full of stars. The Yi clan had announced their move, but they hadn't. And at this moment, Ling Hanwu made the first move. Chuchen. Although you don't love me, although you can't be my wife, watch me use my life to fight for a happy future for you. Kill them. Kill me first. Ling Hanwu roared at the top of his lungs and suddenly went berserk. Mengjin. I didn't let you down. I hope you don't let Chuchen down. Don't let her down. Ling Hanwu's clothes were as white as snow, his sword like silver, his expression confused and crazy. In the snow he exploded. In the mist he danced. In the vast world he killed. At this moment, Ling Hanwu seemed to have gone mad. This unforeseen event caused everyone to be greatly shocked. No one expected Ling Hanwu to suddenly charge out crazily, including the few supreme martial artists of the Yi clan who had long sensed Ling Hanwu's arrival. The Ling clan and the Yi clan were both big clans and had always been on good terms. This time they had the same goal. Who would have thought that Ling Hanwu would suddenly come out to kill? Ling Hanwu charged into the group of black-robed men like a mad tiger. His arms shook violently. This shake was so strong that it actually caused the white clothes he was wearing to explode. With a bang, thousands of snowflakes blossomed from his sword, carrying with it a boundless and fanatical killing intent. He stabbed out fiercely. The three black-robed men had already stabbed their sword while they were still in shock. Their bodies spun as they fell out, spurting out bright red blood. Ling Hanwu's sword had already pierced into the hearts of the other two men. Another man's throat was slit. "Gain? Take Chuchen away." Ling Hanwu shouted crazily. The long sword around him directly transformed into a blood-red circle of light, charging into the encirclement unstoppably. Then he turned around and charged back. "Follow me. Take Chuchen away." Ling Hanwu shouted. A deep sense of despair hit him all of a sudden. The thrill of his beloved pledging her life to the man she loved completely shattered his heart. His beloved was in grave danger, but at this moment, his blood was completely boiling. At this moment, even Ling Hanwu himself didn't know what he was doing. He didn't even know what he was shouting. In such a frenzy, his heart was strangely conscious like ice and snow. He actually felt incomparably calm. The memories of the past flooded his mind so clearly. "Chuchen, when you were 8 years old, I said that I would protect you. I wouldn't let you be bullied. Chuchen, when you were 15 years old, I said that I would take care of you for the rest of your life. Chuchen, when you were 10 years old, I said that I would fulfill your wish. Chuchen, all the way until now, I said that I would give you the happiness you wanted. I will give it to you. Your happiness. Even if I have to pay with my life. You must be happy. You must be happy." His heart was racing as fast as lightning, replaying every little bit of their past together. However, he didn't say anything about all of this. He only waved his sword madly and killed madly. Madly he charged out. "Gain? Take Chuchen away. Take Chuchen away. Take Chuchen away." Ling Hanwu roared at the sky. In the dense snowstorm in the sky, he seemed to have turned into snow, dancing madly with the mournful northern wind. The Yi clan people blocked and dodged in a flurry. They didn't know how to face this obviously crazy young master of the Ling clan. Kill. Not kill? While they were hesitating, Ling Hanwu had already charged out a path. A gloomy voice like the sound of metal clashing said, "Kill him. I will explain to the Ling clan." With this order, the Yi clan experts seemed to have found their backbone. They swarmed forward and blocked the path. Ling Hanwu attacked madly, not defending at all. Madly roaring, anxiously urging, every word was like a violent roar that made one want to vomit blood. When Ling Hanwu charged out, Meng Chaoran and Yi Chuchen were stunned. The two of them didn't expect Ling Hanwu to charge out at this moment. And the moment he did, he was already in a frenzy. "Hanwu!" Meng Chaoran shouted. He, who had always been indifferent to life and death, suddenly became agitated. His eyes reddened and looked as if they were about to burst. So many years of entanglement of gratitude and grudges, so many years of turmoil and love, had become a pair of brothers who took care of each other wholeheartedly. Although Ling Hanwu had never admitted to being brothers with him. But today, at such a critical moment, he came to meet his death resolutely. "Hanwu, this has nothing to do with you." Meng Chaoran roared with all his might and pounced forward madly. He wasn't going to kill, he was going to stop Ling Hanwu from killing. Ling Hanwu had killed someone. He probably wouldn't be able to leave today. He was already dead meat. Why should he implicate his good brother? But his cultivation was much weaker than Ling Hanwu's. He couldn't catch up. Ling Hanwu had already charged in while shouting madly, and then charged out with a thunderous roar. He wanted to kill them. "Kill me first." Tears filled Meng Chaoran's eyes. He suddenly roared, "Yi clan. The one you want is me. Let Hanwu go. This has nothing to do with him." But at this moment, that indifferent voice had already sounded. "Kill him. I will explain things to the Ling clan." Then a powerful palm shadow came crashing down like a thunderbolt. The target, Ling Hanwu. The supreme martial artist had made his move. Ling Hanwu laughed maniacally. His sword moved forward like a bolt of white lightning, piercing into the chest of the person in front of him. But at this moment,
That supreme martial artist's palm hit his back fiercely like the god of thunder splitting open the sky. Ling Hanwu trembled all over. Then he froze. He wanted to turn back to take a look, but the moment he did, his body went limp. The palm of a third-grade supreme martial artist had completely shattered his spine and pulverized all his internal organs. This palm had shattered all of Ling Hanwu's vitality. Chapter 1085. No one knew what kind of strength was supporting the two of them, but the two of them actually made it to Ling Hanwu's side. Faced with the forest of swords and sabers, Yi Chuchen stepped forward and welcomed them. "Don't disturb us, let us talk to him." Yi Chuchen's voice was choked with sobs, her body trembling as she spoke. There seemed to be a crazy flame burning in her eyes. Her voice was resolute and did not allow for any disobedience. But there was a strange kind of indifference in it. A kind of indifference that made one's heart as dead as ashes. Yi Di's gloomy voice said indifferently, "Let them pass." He added softly, "On account of Ling Fengyun, I'll let the two of you talk for the last time." But before he could say that, Meng Chaoran had already rushed over and hugged Ling Hanwu without a care. Ling Hanwu's consciousness had already started to scatter. His pupils had already started to dilate. A blow from a third-grade supreme martial artist was far from what a seventh-grade martial saint like him could withstand. But the moment he saw Meng Chaoran, his eyes suddenly focused as if miraculously. There was anxiety in his eyes as he roared, "Why do you care about me? Why aren't you leaving?" He was roaring. But his voice was pitifully soft. "I'll send you off first." Meng Chaoran took a deep breath and exhaled gently, afraid that he would disturb his brother or use too much force and take away his brother's last chance of survival. "I'll send you off. Hanwu, today we're leaving together." Ling Hanwu wanted to turn his head anxiously, but he couldn't. He could only move his eyes slowly and scold angrily, "You scoundrel, stupid bird." "Chuchen. Where's Chuchen? If we're all dead, what will happen to her? What will happen to her?" "I'll go with you." Yi Chuchen walked over lightly and squatted down. She said gently, "Brother Hanwu, let's go together. The road to the netherworld is long, you'll be lonely and scared if you travel alone." "No, I'm not scared." Ling Hanwu didn't know where the strength came from, but he actually straightened his neck anxiously. "Don't. You have to be happy. If you die, I won't die in peace." Suddenly he stared at the snowy night sky and roared, "Despicable heavens! I won't die in peace." Yi Chuchen's tears trickled down and landed on Ling Hanwu's face. Ling Hanwu's gaze became unfocused. He murmured, his heart aching. "I'm most afraid of you crying. I'm most afraid of you crying, because I was afraid that you would cry, I backed out. Because I was afraid that you would cry, I fulfilled your wish. Because I was afraid that you would cry, I covered for my love rival to escape. Because I was afraid that you would cry, I secretly brought my love rival to meet you. Because I was afraid that you would cry, I gave up everything for you. Because I was afraid that you would cry, I lived a lonely life. Because I was afraid that you would cry, I gave up my life, but you still cried. Chuchen, don't cry." Ling Hanwu's eyes were unfocused as he murmured, "Big brother Hanwu will give you what you want. Don't kill yourself." Yi Chuchen's tears fell like rain. Meng Chaoran held Ling Hanwu's hand tightly. Tears streamed down his face as he desperately channeled his internal energy into Ling Hanwu's body. However, he slowly sensed that Ling Hanwu's body had already started to reject the vital energy. His life force was about to disappear. Oh. Ling Hanwu frowned in pain. "It hurts so much." The strong wind blew snowflakes onto his face. The bone-piercing coldness cleared Ling Hanwu's mind for a moment. He looked at the snowflakes in the sky in a daze. A hint of gentleness appeared in his eyes as he murmured, "I really want to see the snow with you." In the last moments of his life, his last obsession was actually this shattered dream. Yi Chuchen held Ling Hanwu's hand tightly. Tears fell like rain as she said, "Big brother Hanwu, I'll accompany you to see the snow. I'll accompany you to see the snow right now." However, Ling Hanwu could no longer hear what she was saying clearly. His right hand suddenly grabbed Meng Chaoran's hand with all his might. With his last bit of strength he said, "Take her, to alive, on." He suddenly panted heavily but only exhaled and not inhaled. His eyes were wide open. "Gaming. You owe me. You must avenge me with your own hands. You must." His body shook. His eyes were wide open as he lost all signs of life. His hand slipped from Meng Chaoran's hand and fell onto the snowy ground. He touched the cold snowflakes. His expression was pained. It was as if his hand had touched a broken dream.
You must avenge me with your own hands. Meng Qiaoren closed his eyes in agony. Hanwu, you're still so thoughtful even when you're on the brink of death. You know, with my insignificant cultivation, how can I avenge you with my own hands? I'll need at least several thousand years of cultivation. That way I'll be able to live for several thousand years. Several thousand years to take care of Chuchen. That's what you think, right? You're dead and you've even set a goal for me to live on with. But the current situation. Ling Hanwu's body gradually cooled down, but a figure seemed to have appeared before Meng Qiaoren's eyes. Back then, the tall and handsome second Duke Ling Hanwu, who was dressed in snow-white robes and danced in the wind, had smiled and said, "Take care." When he sent him off from the upper three heavens, he had said, "Take care, big brother Hanwu." Yi Chuchen shouted. Suddenly she spat out a mouthful of blood. Meng Qiaoren squatted in a daze. At this moment, his thoughts suddenly became very far away. Back then they laughed and laughed together, they were young and frivolous together. They fell in love with Yi Chuchen together. Then everything changed. But being unable to extricate oneself is also a form of happiness. I know that although you can't see Chuchen, every time you think of her, your heart is filled with motivation and happiness. But do you know me? Every time I think of Chuchen, my heart aches and I feel like stabbing myself with a sword. That time, Ling Hanwu smiled bitterly as he drank. My name isn't good. Ling Hanwu, born in the extreme north. Haha, dancing alone in the cold snow. A lifetime of struggle, a lifetime of suffering, a lifetime of loneliness. Ling Hanwu, singing in the early morning of the night, who pitted my heart already like dirt. This poem was Ling Hanwu making fun of himself. That day he was drunk. He scolded himself when he was drunk. Happy little. He always said that about me. With strong undisguised jealousy and hatred. I didn't know at that time that my family was destroyed and I was alone, running away like a dog. How was I happy? But I finally understood that compared to you, in a certain aspect I was much happier than you, because I had dreams you didn't. You loved your whole life, you suffered your whole life, you were in despair your whole life. You struggled your whole life. If there's a next life, I'm willing to do this for you. You're worth it. Meng Qiaoren stood up slowly and unbuttoned his clothes. He slowly took them off and laid them on the ground. Then he carefully lifted Ling Hanwu's body and placed him on his long robe. Then he carefully fastened the buttons and covered Ling Hanwu's battered chest and back. Then he reached out and touched Ling Hanwu's wide-open eyelids. He murmured, "Brother? Rest in peace, I'll come right away. What I owe you in this life, I'll pay you back in the next life." But when his hand touched Ling Hanwu's eyelids, Ling Hanwu's eyes opened again. This happened 3 times. He glared at him angrily. This pair of lifeless eyes actually glared at him so angrily. Meng Qiaoren's heart shook violently. He was in a daze for a good while before he finally murmured, "You still want us to live, right? Is that so?" He said sadly, "Then Hanwu, don't worry. Chuan, I'll do everything I can to live on with Chuchu. I'll live on well, cultivate hard and take revenge for you personally, okay? Are you at ease now?" His hand touched Ling Hanwu's eyes again. This time, miraculously, Ling Hanwu's eyes quietly closed. His stiff cheeks also seemed to have calmed down a lot. "Do you trust me so much?" At this moment, Meng Qiaoren suddenly felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife. Chapter 1086. Yi Chuchen's body was on the verge of collapsing. Her heart was about to break down from the immense grief. At this moment, her mind was even at a loss. It was as if she was floating in the clouds. From now on, there would be no more Ling Hanwu in this world. Ling Hanwu's sword was still stuck straight in the snow. It was covered in blood and still shone with a cold light. Meng Qiaoren slowly stood up. His gaze focused. He took a step forward and pulled out Ling Hanwu's sword. Holding it in his hand, it was as if the sword still had Ling Hanwu's warmth. Suddenly he let out a long and shrill cry. Tears rolled down his cheeks. "Hanwu, brother. You and I will fight side by side." The wind in the sky became even more shrill and the snowflakes even denser. In Meng Qiaoren's hand, Ling Hanwu's sword shone brightly in the wind and snow. Just like how Ling Hanwu had shouted earlier, "You want to kill them? Kill me first. Take him down." Yidi's gloomy voice was filled with fatigue. The people of the Yi clan swarmed forward. Meng Qiaoren let out a long cry. With one arm around Yi Chuchen, he charged out with his sword like the wind. So what if the Yi clan had many experts? Couldn't charge out? So what? Nothing. Meng Chaoran's dashing figure was now filled with determination and ferocity. This kind of battle, this kind of charge, this kind of desperation, he actually looked 70% to 80% like Ling Hanwu. His sword was like the wind and he actually charged out several feet. An angry voice said, "Bastard. Facing an unfilial daughter who has already betrayed the clan, you're actually so restrained. If you don't take him down, all of your heads will be presented." This order was like a talisman that hastened his death. Instantly the pressure around Meng Chaoran increased greatly. Sabers and swords fell like rain at the same time. Meng Chaoran's face revealed a carefree expression as he murmured, "I want to live, but others won't let me. If I can't live, Hanwu, you can't blame me. If you want to blame me, I'll kowtow to you and apologize on the way to the netherworld. But I can't become a burden to Yang." The sabers and swords fell. The sound of palm wind breaking through the air rang out. It was another supreme martial artist's palm strike. This palm strike was not meant to hurt, but to seal off Meng Chaoran's escape route. Meng Chaoran let out a dashing smile. He turned his body to the side and faced the supreme martial artist's palm strike with his chest. He met the sword and saber head-on. Yi Chuchen screamed madly and suddenly threw herself into Meng Chaoran's arms. She cried out mournfully, "Let's die together." Meng Chaoran was greatly alarmed. In the nick of time, he fiercely hugged Yi Chuchen and turned his body to the side. The corners of his mouth were still smiling confidently as he said indifferently, "Silly girl, the man isn't dead yet. You will die after me. This is my responsibility." His body had only turned halfway when the saber, sword, and palm energy had already reached him. The Yi clan's people didn't want to kill him in the first place. Or they had originally wanted to kill him. But now Chuyang was involved. Meng Chaoran was undoubtedly a powerful chess piece to deal with Chuyang. So how could they bear to kill him? He instinctively withdrew his sword and saber. The supreme martial artist who had attacked also hurriedly retracted his palm force. However, he had already sent it out. How could he take it back? This supreme martial artist only managed to withdraw 70% of his strength in a moment of desperation. His face turned red from the backlash. His body swayed and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Bang! The force was like a mountain, violently bombarding Yi Chuchen and Meng Chaoran. With a few cracking sounds, countless bones in their bodies were broken. They spat out blood at the same time and flew out like kites with their strings cut. Trash! A gloomy voice shouted angrily, "Quickly go and see if he's dead." With a boom, the two of them landed heavily on the snowy ground. They were actually not far from Ling Hanwu. Ling Hanwu lay quietly wearing Meng Chaoran's green robes neatly. His expression was serene. The two of them rolled for a while. Yi Chuchen had already completely fainted, but Meng Chaoran was still a little clear-headed. He actually smiled bitterly. "Amu, we're still together. Hehe, I rushed out so far but I was still beaten back to my brother's side." The Yi clan's people hurriedly flew over to check on him. Meng Chaoran only felt pain all over his body, and his internal organs felt like they were being torn apart. He knew that he had already suffered fatal injuries, but he was still hanging on by a thread. Afraid that he would be saved and used as a tool to threaten his disciple, a hint of mockery flashed at the corners of his mouth. He muttered to himself indifferently, "Using me, Meng Chaoran, as a deterrent?" Using the last of his strength, he flipped the sword over and stabbed it viciously into his heart. At this moment, a long howl sounded in the air. Two figures landed with a boom. One of them said, "Damn it, something really happened. All of you stop right now." The other voice, however, said hurriedly, "Teacher." Meng Chaoran's sword had already reached his heart and pierced 2 inches into it. Fresh blood gushed out. When he heard this voice, he suddenly paused and turned back with great effort, wanting to take one last look. His own disciple. This voice was the voice of the disciple he had poured his heart and soul into. Not to mention calling him teacher, Meng Chaoran could tell which of the two disciples was coughing from a distance. "Yang." Meng Chaoran murmured, his vision gradually blurring. A black-robed figure landed as though he was flying. Clanging sounds rang out, followed by a series of screams, as if some weapon had been broken and someone had been injured. Immediately, Chu Yang's anxious face appeared before Meng Chaoran's eyes. "Teacher, I'm late." Then he hurriedly took out 2 incomplete versions of heavy elixirs and stuffed them into Meng Chaoran and Yi Chuchen's mouths. Meng Chaoran's injuries were, after all, too serious. His consciousness gradually blurred. When the incomplete versions of heavy elixirs entered his body, his spirit was slightly shaken. Then an indescribable sense of fatigue welled up. He murmured, "Yang." Quick, take a look. Your teacher's wife, is she all right, right? If Hanwu can still be saved. His disciple was here. Although Meng Qiaoran knew that Ling Hanwu was already dead, he still had extravagant hopes in his heart. Because he knew that Chu Yang had elixirs on him. Chu Yang hurriedly looked at Yi Chuchen, who was still in his teacher's arms. He said hurriedly, teacher's wife's breathing is very weak. She can still be saved, but… Ling Hanwu? Ling Hanwu? 2 drops of tears rolled down from the corners of Meng Qiaoran's eyes. He asked sadly, dead? Chu Yang nodded heavily. Meng Qiaoran bit his lips tightly. He felt his consciousness blurring in waves. Bu Liuqing's furious voice rang out. Yidi, get out here right now. Meng Qiaoran was suddenly jolted awake. He forced his eyes to focus. Who is this person? This person actually dared to shout at the Yidi like this. Could he be someone impressive? Don't worry, teacher. I will kill all of them tonight to avenge you. Chu Yang gritted his teeth. His hatred soared to the heavens, his eyes bloodshot. No, Meng Qiaoran said hurriedly. I want to personally take revenge. If I don't personally take revenge, I've let Hanwu down. I've let the ancestors down. Hanwu's dead. I will personally take revenge. Meng Qiaoran held Chu Yang's hand tightly and finally fainted. His right hand was still tightly gripping Ling Hanwu's sword. The sword was cold and icy. I will avenge you. I will. I will take good care of Chu Chu. I will. I will live on with Chu Chu. I will. Hanwu, your efforts will not go to waste. I will stain your sword with the blood of your enemies. I will. When the time comes, I will drink to my heart's content with you. Chu Yang's eyes were bloodshot. His body trembled somewhat uncontrollably. Murderous intent rose all over him. There had never been a moment when he wanted so badly to wipe out the big clans. Ever since he came to the upper 3 heavens, Chu Yang knew his mission. But he had never thought of wiping out all the big clans. In the big clans there were also heroes, chivalrous and gentle men. The influential figures of the big clans all had a glorious past. For example, Ling Hanwu or Meng Se. But at this moment, looking at the motionless Ling Hanwu and the blood-soaked Meng Qiaoran, Chu Yang suddenly wished he could kill everyone in the big clans with his sword. He understood. Perhaps there were also heroes in the big clans. As long as they were faced with a threat, these people would band together to resist and do whatever it took. Today they could ambush his master and kill Ling Hanwu, who was on the same side. Who would they deal with tomorrow? In their eyes, he wasn't even the Tribulation Sword Master. He was just a rising force that posed some threat to them, yet they could be so ruthless. What would happen if they found out that he was the Tribulation Sword Master one day? Killing to stop killing may not be the best way, but it was the most effective way. He couldn't turn back and neither could they. So, kill. Chu Yang stood there quietly. But he suddenly roared madly in his heart. A cold shout was heard, followed by the sound of people tumbling. Bu Liuqing landed beside Yi Di and sent the people of the Yi clan tumbling away with a palm strike. Bu Liuqing shouted, Yi Di, do you not dare to come out? There was a burst of wind and snow. Yi Di's black-clothed figure appeared, wrapped in thick night fog. His voice had more apprehension and respect. Elder Bu, I'm really flattered that you're here to interfere with the Yi clan's family affairs. Bu Liuqing rolled his eyes and said, Family affairs? I don't care about your family affairs. If I don't like it, I have to interfere. What? You have an opinion? You don't like it? Yi Di said calmly, Elder Bu naturally has your reasons if you want to interfere. Since Elder Bu has interfered, then the Yi clan will just let this matter go. Bu Liuqing turned and shouted, Little one, what should we do? Kill or not? Dark fog burst out of the night Thearka's eyes as he looked at Chu Yang cautiously and warily. This little one is indeed not simple. Look at this, Brother Qing. Bu Liuqing actually wants to listen to him? He's indeed dangerous. He has to kill him. Chu Yang said lightly, Leave 2 people behind to help us send the people back. As for the others, let them go first. He paused and said, My master said that he wants to take revenge with his own hands. Take revenge with his own hands. Bu Liuqing and Yi Di sneered in their hearts. With Meng Qiaoran's current abilities, taking revenge with his own hands was as difficult as ascending to heaven. Chapter 1087. Yi Di then turned and smiled at Bu Liuqing. Elder Bu, I shall take my leave. The world is long, I'm sure we'll meet again. Bu Liuqing said impatiently, Get lost. Hold on. Chu Yang got up slowly and asked solemnly, Who killed Ling Hanwu? Step forward and let me take a look.
An old man in black snorted and took a step forward proudly. He said dispassionately, "It's me. My name is Yisei. Why do you want to avenge him?" Chu Yang looked at him dispassionately and said slowly, "Yisei. Not bad, not bad. Who hurt my master and mistress?" "It's also me." Yisei sneered. "A clown who can't even withstand a single blow. He can't even take a palm strike with just 10% of my power. How can he even talk about taking revenge personally? This person's mouth stinks." Chu Yang said dispassionately. "His mouth stinks, I'll wash it for him." Bu Luqing snorted and suddenly moved. The next moment, with a few slaps, that guy had already been slapped more than a dozen times and rolled out. Blood flowed from the corners of his mouth. "I won't kill anyone today," Chu Yang said. "Yisei, you're my masters. Live well, don't die too early. That will be very disappointing." Yisei lay on the ground with his hair disheveled. He glared at Chu Yang fiercely. "Mengyin? Kill me? Chu Yang, you're dreaming." "Whether it's a dream or not, you'll know in the future," Chu Yang said dispassionately. "But you must take care. You must take care of yourself. Let's go." Yi Di snorted, and a ball of dense night fog swayed twice before suddenly disappearing. The Yi clan members retreated like the tide. "You really shouldn't have promised your master to take revenge personally." Bu Luqing walked to Chu Yang's side, shaking his head and sighing. "When will that be?" Chu Yang said dispassionately, "Since my master said to take revenge personally, then he will definitely do it. I will do whatever it takes to help him fulfill his wish. I also want to borrow Elder Bu's power to kill all these people. But that way I won't feel anything. If I don't take revenge personally, I'll always feel lacking." Chu Yang said softly, "Revenge must be taken with one's own hands. Hatred must be repaid in person. A man in this world will repay kindness and enmity as he pleases." Bu Luqing sighed. "If everyone wants to take revenge with their own hands, taking revenge with one's own hands requires ability." Chu Yang said quietly, "My teacher has this ability." His eyes seemed to be burning with a crazy flame. There was a sentence engraved in his heart: "Even if he doesn't have it, I will make him have it." From today onwards he would not rest until he was dead. Bu Luqing was dumbfounded and said, "Let's go back." Chu Yang didn't say a word. He bent down and picked up Ling Hanwu's body. Yi Xiu led a group of people to send Meng Chaoran and Yi Chuchen back to Chu Yang's orchard palace. Along the way Yi Xiu didn't say a word. When they arrived at the orchard palace, Yi Xiu put down the person. When Yi Xiu bade farewell, he looked at Chu Yang as if he wanted to say something. But Chu Yang didn't look at him. "Yi Xiu finally let out a long sigh and turned to leave. Although we have some sympathy for each other and although my aunt is here, we are still enemies. After today they would not rest until one of them was dead." Anything he said would be superfluous. Chu Yang was busy tending to Meng Chaoran and Yi Chuchen's bodies. Meng Chaoran's spine was broken, both his legs were fractured, his knees were shattered, and 4 of his ribs were broken. One of them seemed to have pierced into his internal organs, and his internal organs were ruptured. The most serious thing was that his head had been hit by the force of the supreme martial artist's palm. Although it had only brushed past him diagonally, Meng Chaoran's head was severely injured. He was almost left with half a breath. If it wasn't for the incomplete version of the heavy pill, he would have been dead by now. Yi Chuchen, who was at the side, was even more seriously injured than Meng Chaoran because she tried her best to block the palm force for him. Ling Hanwu's body was placed quietly in the hall of the orchard palace. Zi Sheqing, Moon Breeze and the rest were shocked when they returned. No one expected such a tragic incident to happen in the short time they were out. It was only in the middle of the night that Meng Chaoran regained some consciousness and opened his eyes. "Hanwu?" Meng Chaoran rolled his eyes. Chu Yang didn't answer and turned his head away. "Chu-chu?" Meng Chaoran asked in a low voice. "She's still unconscious." Chu Yang comforted him. "She'll be fine, I promise." Tears flowed out of Meng Chaoran's eyes. He looked at the sky above his head in a daze and heaved a long sigh. "Let me avenge him with my own hands. This is Hanwu's last request in his life." Meng Chaoran said weakly, "Those people are mine." "They're yours." Chu Yang nodded and comforted him softly. "But they're here to deal with you this time." Meng Chaoran looked at Chu Yang. "You have to be careful." Chu Yang's expression was heavy as he nodded slowly. "They're really here to deal with me. I'm so sleepy I'm going to take a nap." A familiar carefree smile appeared at the corners of Meng Chaoran's lips again. He smiled lightly. "In my dream I'll go drinking with Hanwu." Chu Yang's heart ached. Meng Chaoran had already fallen into a deep sleep.
The next day, someone from the Ling clan came to take away Ling Hanwu's body. It was said that Ling Fengyun and Yi Di had a huge quarrel and almost came to blows. The two of them parted on bad terms. The person who came was Ling Hanshua. Ling Hanshua's eyes were red. It was obvious that Ling Hanwu's death was a huge blow to her. Before she left, she looked at Chu Yang and said, "Second uncle left just like that. Although he died for the love of his life, the root of his death was with you. Second uncle had lived a tiring life all these years. His death can be considered a relief. Although the living can't bear it, he can be relieved after all. So let me remind you once more, be careful at the medicine banquet in Tianji City." Ling Hanshua said softly. Chu Yang was silent. He said, "Thank you. I'll bring second uncle back today. Tomorrow morning I'll bring a few people and bring his body back to Lingshao City. We'll meet again in the distant future. Take care of yourself. From now on, the big clans and you, Chu Yang, will never rest until one of us is dead. If we meet on the battlefield in the future and you can kill me, don't show mercy." After Ling Hanshua finished speaking, she led her people out. When she reached the door, she suddenly stopped and said, "Second uncle's sword is called Solo Dance in the Cold Sky." Second uncle said that Ling Shui's solo dance in the cold sky was destined to be lonely for the rest of his life. She paused for a moment and said, "Tell your teacher to cherish this sword." Ling Hanshua left. She brought Ling Hanwu's body with her. Meng Chaoran was a little reluctant, but Ling Hanwu was after all a member of the Ling clan. Being buried in the ancestral grave of the Ling clan could also be considered as returning to his roots. He could only watch helplessly as Ling Hanshua brought Ling Hanwu away. He let out a long sigh. "Hanwu, from now on, drinking with brothers is only a dream." 3 days later, Meng Chaoran was already able to sit up. However, Yi Chuchen was still unconscious. Chu Yang also felt that this was strange. Under the effects of the incomplete version of the heavy pill, her injuries shouldn't be life-threatening. She shouldn't be in such a coma either. How could this be? Zi Sheqing solved this problem. She subconsciously thought that she was already dead. Moreover, she had died with her lover and good friend. This kind of death was something that Yi Chuchen was willing to accept. She could feel that she had died in bliss. Therefore, although her body was fine, her consciousness had entered a state of suspended animation. No one knew how long this state could be maintained, but, as long as she didn't realize that she was actually still alive, she would never wake up. Zi Sheqing and Chu Yang were both helpless in this situation. Meng Chaoran, on the other hand, was very open-minded. "It's all right. With me by her side to take care of her, nothing will happen to her. There will be a day when she wakes up. If she wakes up now, she will have to accept the cruel reality. This may also be a good thing. You guys go about your business. Leave her to me. Even if she doesn't wake up for the rest of her life, we are still together after all." Meng Chaoran looked at Yi Chuchen lying quietly beside him, his eyes full of tenderness. Zi Sheqing and Chu Yang were silent. Both Zi Sheqing and Chu Yang didn't understand this relationship very well, because it was too complicated. The two of them were childhood sweethearts. Yi Chuchen's clan annihilated Meng Chaoran's clan. The two of them fell in love with each other. Ling Hanwu waited with infatuation. When Yi Chuchen was on the verge of death, she let go of all her scruples and married Meng Chaoran. Ling Hanwu died. Yi Chuchen fell into a coma. Meng Chaoran mourned the dead and took care of the injured. Firstly, it was for revenge, and secondly, it was for deep love. Did Yi Chuchen have a knot in her heart after she woke up? What was Meng Chaoran thinking now? Even with Chu Yang's exquisite mind, he couldn't fathom all of this. It was complicated, like silk that had been stirred up. There were thousands of threats. On the 5th day, Meng Chaoran was already able to get up and move around. He took care of Yi Chuchen 3 meals a day. As for the rest of the time, he began to cultivate and recuperate. What was surprising was that although he had the support of Chu Yang's countless elixirs, Meng Chaoran's cultivation progress still made Zi Sheqing feel deeply shocked. It wasn't just because Meng Chaoran was rushing up step by step. If that was all, it wouldn't be much. The key was that when Meng Chaoran took care of Yi Chuchen, he took care of her. When he cultivated, he cultivated. When he took care of Yi Chuchen, it seemed like there was only Yi Chuchen left in his world. But when he cultivated, there was only cultivation in the whole world. His mind was completely focused, without any distractions. Once he cultivated, it was the deepest level of spiritual cultivation. He definitely didn't pay any attention to other aspects. There were only 4 things in a day: taking care of Yi Chuchen, cultivating, eating, and taking an hour out of every night to drink alone with Ling Hanwu's cup, as if they were brothers drinking together. One was in the world of the living, the other was in the netherworld. After drinking a cup, he would pour a cup of wine from the cup opposite him onto the ground. Meng Chaoran actually drank until his spirit soared and he was in high spirits. Sometimes he would slap his thigh and laugh heartily as he drank, and sometimes he would drink sadly and silently shed tears. As usual he was cool and unrestrained, and as usual he was indifferent. Just like good friends meeting in real life, drinking and talking and pouring out their hearts. Confiding in each other, they talked about everything. Just like how Chu Yang didn't expect that Meng Chaoran's habit of drinking with the illusory Ling Hanwu every night would actually continue for his entire life. Until the end of his life he still drank with Ling Hanwu and said, "Brother, I'm coming. Come and fetch me." Only then could he rest in peace. At that time, who knew how many tens of thousands of years had passed? At this point he suddenly thought of a story. There was an old Red Army veteran who returned home after the founding of the country. Every night, he would set a cup of wine and drink with his comrades who had sacrificed themselves. This habit continued until he became seriously ill and couldn't move. Before he died he said, "I'm the only one left in the company. I have to go." There was also a soldier who gave up all his privileges after the war and became a gravekeeper for his comrades in the cemetery of martyrs. There were many, many more. Such true stories could be found everywhere in the country. There were really many of them. Chapter 1088. A few days later. Meng Chaoran started to look for Zi Sheqing to discuss something. Zi Sheqing was very confused about his intentions. But after hearing what he said, Zi Sheqing was deeply moved and almost lost her composure. Meng Chaoran created a mental cultivation technique by himself. He felt that it was effective. Because Zi Sheqing's cultivation was the highest here and she was the most knowledgeable, he came to discuss with Zi Sheqing to improve it. After all, before getting confirmation, Meng Chaoran did not dare to impart such a technique that he himself was not sure of to his disciple. Meng Chaoran had gone through a lot. His mind was calm and his personality was indifferent. He did not care about anything in the world. All these years, he felt that his body was restrained and he always wanted to break through the shackles. But he could not do it. Finally, after Chu Yang cured him, he went to the upper three heavens. He tried day and night and finally succeeded in creating a mental cultivation technique. It was only recently that it was finally perfected. Meng Chaoran called this technique, Tianyi Divine Technique. And this was also the biggest reason why Meng Chaoran's cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. This cultivation technique could not increase one's cultivation, but it could make one's mind focus. When doing something, one would only think about that one thing wholeheartedly. As for other things, it would be removed from one's mind. This was not only cultivating one's heart, but also one's spirit. Zi Sheqing was shocked. Because after trying it out, she felt that although this technique had some flaws, it was definitely feasible. Completely focusing one's mind on cultivation was equivalent to entering the profound level of meditative reflection from the start of cultivation. The start was the deepest level of cultivation. So, how could it not be efficient? This kind of technique was not available even in the heavenly imperial court. It could not cultivate one's heart, spirit or body, but one's heart could be free of worries. For battles, this was the most useless mental cultivation technique, but for cultivation, it was the most powerful and invincible technique. It was actually created by someone who had not even reached the martial saint level. This made Zi Sheqing feel like she was in a dream. This kind of mental cultivation technique was definitely useful for people like Zi Sheqing, or even people who were at a higher level than her. It was extremely useful. Unless one had reached the level of a great saint who could change the heavens and the earth, for example. Someone who could fold the heavens, they might not necessarily have a use for it. However, even at that level there would be times when they would need it. Zi Sheqing realized that it was feasible. She immediately used her vast knowledge of martial arts, almost without sleep or rest, to perfectly master this mental cultivation method within a few days. Pass it on to them. Meng Chaoran smiled faintly at Zi Sheqing and said, "My cultivation is too low. I'm afraid they won't take a liking to it. But if you impart it to them, there won't be a problem." After he finished speaking, Meng Chaoran smiled and walked out confidently. He continued to look after Yi Chuchen and went to cultivate. Even Zi Sheqing was stunned for a long time by this kind of indifference that was beyond chic. Chu Yang's teacher was truly a genius, but he was also an out-and-out eccentric. However, after Meng Chaoran left, he threw this problem to Zi Sheqing. Who should he teach such a cultivation method to? In Zi Sheqing's opinion, this set of cultivation method was the best in the world. Because there was no other set of cultivation method that could be applied to anyone like this mental cultivation method. Ordinary people who didn't know martial arts, all the way to powerful people who could move mountains and fill seas. All of them could benefit from this set of cultivation method. All of them could use it. It could be applied to good people and bad people. If such a cultivation method were to be circulated outside and fall into the hands of some evil people, it could be said that there would be endless trouble. When villains and evil people obtained such a cultivation method, the higher their cultivation, the greater the trouble they would cause. For the first time in her life, Zi Sheqing was so worried that she couldn't eat. At night, she called Chu Yang over and asked him this question. Minister Chu was also stunned. He didn't expect his teacher to have such an earth-shattering ability. For a moment, Chu Yang couldn't help but feel proud. However, Chu Yang couldn't do anything about Zi Sheqing's worries. People like him definitely had to learn it. As long as this set of cultivation method was created, it would definitely be circulated. As for who it would eventually be circulated to, only God knew. Let's not care so much. Let's practice first. Chu Yang said in the end, let's benefit first and circulate it among the few of us. For the time being, there's no need to worry about it being leaked. As for the circulation, it'll be a long time later. When that time comes, we still don't know where we are. Who can care about what happens in the future? Just like men now, it's good enough that we can get married and hug our wives to sleep every night. Do you want to care about your grandson who will be a bachelor 100,000 years later? Do whatever you want. You're really a woman. There's no cure for you. Get out. Zi Sheqing roared. Minister Chu came up with a brilliant idea, but the result was that he was kicked out by Zi Sheqing. He crashed through the door and fell into the snow looking very pathetic. Mo Qingwu was practicing in the courtyard. When she saw Chu Yang fall out, her heart ached. She climbed up and came to help him. She complained, Brother Chu Yang, you're being a hooligan to Sister Zi again? Sai, even if you want to be a hooligan to her, you should have some confidence before doing so. You're not as strong as her now, you're just asking for a beating. Chu Yang banged his head on the ground. Look at what this little girl is saying. Am I that kind of person? Immediately, Zi Sheqing gathered Bu Luqing, Feng and Yu Wu Chanxian, Dong Wushang, Mo Lei, Rui Badong, Mo Qingwu, Chu Lur and Chu Yang, and seriously imparted this technique to them. And there was a strict requirement. It wasn't that the technique was forbidden to be spread to outsiders, but, if they wanted to impart it, they must be of good character and keep it strictly a secret. This secret should be kept to the greatest extent for as long as possible. As for the future, it was still Chu Yang's way of saying, when the time comes that I can't control them anymore, do whatever you want. When they're not here anymore, what's there to control? Bu Luqing and the Feng and Yu trio had high cultivations and were most worried about this problem. Getting this technique was like getting a treasure. This mental cultivation technique could completely avoid inner demons. Avoid inner demons. For people at the level of Bu Luqing and the Feng and Yu couple, such a technique was even better than taking an elixir that could allow them to ascend immediately. An absolute treasure. Dong Wushang and the rest were also very excited. Zi Sheqing originally didn't want to take credit for herself, but Meng Chaoran was determined not to admit that this technique was created by himself. Zi Sheqing could only accept everyone's gratitude with a slightly red face. She felt that this was the most embarrassing thing she had ever done in her life. With this technique, when everyone practiced, they realized that the efficiency of their practice was 3 times higher than usual. Even Mo Qingwu, Wu Chanxian, Chu Lur, Feng Yuro, Mo Lei, and the rest of the women were more than 3 times faster than usual. From this point, it could be seen that women usually let their imaginations run wild twice or even more than men. Scary women. The heavy snow lasted for a whole half a month. The snow on the flat ground was very deep, reaching up to the knees. In many places in Tianji City, there were actually snow disasters, and things like houses collapsing due to heavy snow actually happened frequently. According to Bu Luqing, such heavy snow was the first time in tens of thousands of years that something like this had happened in Tianji City, which was located at the southern end of the region. It was really a strange thing. However, as the heavy snow continued to fall, the air in Tianji City became fresher and fresher. Following that, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth became denser. Chapter 1089. Early morning. Chu Yang walked out of the room and saw that Mo Qingwu was already waiting outside. Seeing Chu Yang come out, she couldn't help but pout. Big brother Chu Yang, you're so lazy. You woke up so late. I've been waiting for a long time. Why are you waiting for me? Chu Yang was surprised. I'll go with you. Mo Qingwu waved her little fist. I want to see big brother Chu Yang win. No? It's too dangerous. Chu Yang was shocked. What time was it now that the little girl actually wanted to go and cheer for him? It's okay. Zi Shiqing's voice said, I'll use my divine sense to monitor. Besides, the Moon Breeze couple has already gone. Bu Luqing will look after little Wu in the dark. Nothing will happen to little Wu. You just have to take care of yourself. Chu Yang breathed a sigh of relief and said, since that's the case, I'm relieved. After breakfast, Chu Yang held Mo Qingwu's little hand and the two of them walked out side by side. Wu Qianqian faintly looked at the backs of the two people and sighed softly. Walking in the white snow, Mo Qingwu's red dress looked even more like a blazing fire. Her whole person was like a lively elf, full of vitality. Her pink little face was filled with a happy smile. Feeling Chu Yang's warmth in her hand, the little girl felt even happier and more satisfied. Chu Yang was shocked to realize that he had always thought that little Wu didn't grow up. Today, walking side by side, he realized that Mo Qingwu's height had already reached his chin. This could almost be considered a tall figure among women. Moreover, her eyes were becoming more and more full. Her chest also seemed to be expanding day by day. Her perky little butt was also quietly developing. Her small waist was becoming slimmer and slimmer. When she walked, that kind of unintentional and gentle rhythm had already begun to have some of the charm of a young girl. The little girl had grown up. Chu Yang thought about it a little emotionally. Thinking about how Mo Qingwu was so charming and affectionate in his previous life, he couldn't help but feel a faint bitterness in his heart. Although his lover was by his side now, for some reason, Mo Qingwu's pair of resentful eyes in his previous life still appeared in his dreams sometimes. Brother Chu Yang? I've been dreaming for the past few days. It's so strange. Mo Qingwu hopped around in the snow and turned her face to the side. She was dressed in red and her hair was like a waterfall, making her small face look even more delicate. Her eyelashes also appeared to be longer, like two beautiful little fans that were flickering. Her cherry lips were red and pouty, making people want to peck them. Chu Yang's heart was filled with tender affection as he looked at her. He was somewhat lost in thought. So he casually asked, Qingwu, what good dream did you have? Tell me, did you dream of me? Brother Chu Yang, I've been having a strange dream for the past few days. The same dream. Mo Qingwu's eyes were somewhat confused and blurred. There was also a kind of faint sadness and hidden bitterness. This kind of gaze made Chu Yang frightened. This expression, why was it so similar to Qingwu's in his previous life? The same dream? What dream? When Chu Yang said this, he felt that his throat was a little dry. A strange dream. In the dream there was you and me. In the dream I had already grown up. Mo Qingwu lowered her eyes and said, then, on a mountain, there was a purple bamboo forest. I went there to pick purple bamboo roots. Then I met you. But you were so lonely in the dream. Chu Yang, who was walking forward in the snow, suddenly stopped in his tracks. He was dumbstruck. A large piece of snow under his feet was kicked up by him and scattered in all directions. Brother Chu Yang? Mo Qingwu was originally deep in thought as she walked forward. Chu Yang suddenly stopped, but she continued to walk forward 2 steps before she realized it. She hurriedly turned around and asked, nothing, you can continue? Chu Yang only felt a wave of dizziness. Actually, it's nothing. At that time, although you were lonely, you made people's hearts ache. When I saw you, I felt that this man had suffered too much pain and wanted to comfort him. Then we got to know each other just like that. But in the dream you were so heartless. Mo Qingwu pouted and said aggrievedly, I was so accommodating to you and liked you so much, but you always bullied me. Bullied you? Chu Yang murmured. You always asked me to leave you, but I couldn't bear to. In the dream, other than you, no one was good to me. Mo Qingwu said with tears in her eyes. Chu Yang suddenly felt a sharp pain in his heart. We met 3 times in the purple bamboo forest and then, it was always you. Mo Qingwu suddenly blushed as she said this. She was a little shy and didn't continue. What about me? Chu Yang asked in confusion. It was always you who was bad. Mo Qingwu pouted, blushing. She lowered her eyes and looked down embarrassed. Chu Yang scratched his head. Anyway, every time you saw me you took off my clothes, you're not allowed to ask. Mo Qingwu stomped her feet and said coquettishly with a red face. Chu Yang was dumbfounded. Then, what do you mean by then? Mo Qingwu said angrily, every time I dream of this I wake up, So embarrassing, such a strange dream, big bad guy. Chu Yang heaved a sigh of relief and asked seriously, "You have such dreams every night?" "Not really, it's just that since the beginning of the first half of the year, sometimes I would dream of it and sometimes I wouldn't dream of it. Until recently when I came here and met you, such dreams suddenly increased." Mo Qingwu lowered her eyes. Her eyelashes flickered a couple of times. Finally, she quietly raised her eyelashes and stole a glance at Chu Yang. Then she hurriedly lowered her eyelashes and said softly, "Big brother Chu Yang, I think?" "I am? You are what?" Chu Yang asked. I think, I like you too much, that's why I have such dreams every night." Mo Qingwu raised her head. She bit her lips and squinted her eyes. She looked a little shy and secretly happy. Then she said in a soft voice, "Elder brother Chu Yang, I'm not afraid of you being bad, but can I ask you to be a little gentler to me in my dreams?" Chu Yang only felt that his entire mouth and throat had become dry. Even his voice was hoarse. He coughed twice and said with some bitterness and pain, "Qingwu, you're so silly. That's a dream, and it's your dream. How can I make the decision?" Mo Qingwu's eyes suddenly focused. Yes, that's the tone. In the dream you never call me Little Wu, you always call me Qingwu. Just like how you called me just now, it's the exact same voice. Chu Yang took a deep breath and looked at Mo Qingwu in a daze. He suddenly felt like his heart was being twisted. "Big brother Chu Yang?" Mo Qingwu raised her head and looked at him with some sadness. "Will you be very bad to me in the future, just like in the dream?" "I won't." Chu Yang stretched out his arms and pulled this petite figure into his arms. He hugged her tightly and murmured, "I won't." Mo Qingwu curled up in his arms and smiled contentedly. She said softly, "Big brother Chu Yang, I like you so much, so much." She suddenly raised her head and looked into Chu Yang's eyes. She stared blankly for a while. Then she stood on her tiptoes and moved her petal-like red lips closer. She touched Chu Yang's lips lightly and stopped for a moment. But before Chu Yang could react, she immediately lowered her head and buried it deep in Chu Yang's arms. She closed her eyes and pressed her body tightly against him. She murmured as if she was sleep-talking, "Big brother Chu Yang, don't bully me. Little Wu likes you so much that I'm about to die." Chu Yang was still recalling the soft touch on his lips. At this moment, there was actually a kind of space-time confusion where the past and present life suddenly overlapped. There was a kind of sadness and worry in his heart. Only Chu Yang knew that Mo Qingwu's dream was not a dream. This was something that really happened in the past life. But why would it appear in Qingwu's dream in this life? If this continued, wouldn't Qingwu realize her dream sooner or later? Dream until her last day? Or would she suddenly recover the memories of her past life? Chu Yang suddenly felt his heart twitching. The two of them walked slowly in the snow. At this moment, Chu Yang suddenly felt that there was no one else in this world except himself and Qingwu. And Mo Qingwu obviously felt the same. The little girl was unusually quiet. She leaned against Chu Yang and walked forward step by step. At this moment, the whole world was indescribably peaceful. Just like a dream, all the sounds around them seemed to have disappeared. It was only until they turned the corner of the street and heard the hubbub of voices in front that the two of them suddenly woke up from their dream. The two of them couldn't help but look at each other. Mo Qingwu's cheeks were as red as an apple. Her eyes were watery with an inexplicable shyness and sweetness. She whispered, "Big brother Chu Yang, I like it so much." "I like it so much too." Chu Yang smiled gently. Mo Qingwu opened her arms happily and twirled around in the snow. Then, the two of them realized that it was actually snowing. It turned out that their hair and clothes were covered with snowflakes. "Big brother Chu Yang, when I was young, my mother taught me how to dance. When you are free, I will dance for you." Mo Qingwu giggled. Her eyes flashed with mischief and tenderness. She said, "I will dance to the heavens for you." Chu Yang's heart trembled. At this moment he recalled a poem and also a very important matter. Light as a dream, floating in the air, enchanting as a sea of blood and a mountain of bones dance. Don't ask the sword for 1,000 miles, life and death follow to the heavens. This was a poem written for Mo Qingwu by his friend in the previous life, the world's #1 genius, Shui Leihan. In the previous life, the three of them often gathered together. Every time Mo Qingwu followed him, Shui Leihan was always very envious. Shui Leihan became famous at a young age and his poetic talent shook the world. By the time he got to know him, he was already famous. He could be said to be an unparalleled legend. His poems were being sung everywhere in the upper and lower three heavens. Since ancient times, there had never been anyone who could achieve such achievements just by relying on poems. But after his rebirth, he had never heard of Shui Leihan's name. There was no such person at all. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.